degrees. So fairly fine end to the evening for parts of eastern Scotland, eastern parts of northern England as well. That's where we'll see the best of the sunshine this evening. Temperatures around 17 degrees to end the day. Across the west, though, still some showers moving in where we're exposed to the breeze, temperatures in the lower teens. Clouds already building across Northern Ireland and parts of Wales by the end of this evening ahead of the next weather front due overnight. But for many areas of England and Wales, it should be a dry and fine evening away from the far southeast. As I said, it's going to turn more unsettled overnight tonight. An area of low pressure will sweep across the country, bringing a spell of very heavy rain and also some quite strong winds, particularly through Friday morning across northwestern areas. Gales are quite likely. So with lots of cloud and rain around, it's fairly tropical air. Temperatures are going to be milder than average by tomorrow morning. But as I said, it's going to be a wet start to the day, potentially some localised flooding issues. But that rain will sweep away quite quickly through Friday morning. Once it does clear, it will bring there will be a much drier and finer picture for the rest of Friday. Still a few showers, particularly across north and eastern areas of Scotland, as well as parts of Northern Ireland. But in any sunshine, 22 or 23 degrees, but still quite breezy through the rest of Friday. Stay tuned and I'll see you later.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK this Thursday morning. In Kent, the coastbound M20, that speed restriction in place due to Operation Brock, Junction 8 for Leeds Castle and the Maidstone services to Junction 9 at Ashford. Also on the coastbound M20 in Kent, there's a lane closed due to a broken down vehicle from the M26 at Junction 3 to Junction 4 at Labourn. Clockwise on the M25 in Essex, one lane is closed due to emergency repairs following an earlier car fire just after Junction 27 for the M11. In Hampshire, the westbound M27, all lanes are now open. The broken down vehicle is gone. Junction 10 at Wickham to Junction 9 at Fareham. And also in Cumbria, the northbound M6, one lane is closed due to emergency barrier repairs. Junction 39 at Shap. And in Lancashire, the southbound M6, lane closed on the exit slip road due to a broken down vehicle. That's at Junction 31 for the A59 at Samlesbury this morning. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank
Obviously,
you.
you work for a tobacco company, so a little caveat there to slip in. Nevertheless, it's no surprise that the illegal market is growing so much. When you look at the cost of cigarettes in Britain, huge amounts of duty and oftentimes, of course, criminality always finds its way into the system. Tell us more about your report.
Absolutely. I mean, up to 90% of a packet of cigarettes is tax. And in the last year, there's been 2 tax increases that have equated more to the last 3 years combined. So now, if you're a roll-your-own smoker, a 30-gram pouch of roll-your-own will cost £22.50, but you can buy a counterfeit pack of 50 grams for £3. So there's a massive disparity. A lot of illegal tobacco is imported, but we do also have a problem in the UK with illegal tobacco factories. So in the last month, there's been an illegal tobacco factory in Gateshead, in Bury, busted, producing roll-your-own tobacco. And on the 12th of July this month, West Midlands gang illegal tobacco factory, the gang was found guilty of producing illegal tobacco, and that was more than £5 million lost tax revenue to the government. And actually, all of those people found guilty got a suspended sentence.
And how does that work? They're literally importing container loads of raw tobacco and packaging it up in factories in Britain, and they're using what appears to be British packaging illegally?
Yeah, some of it is branded packaging, so some of it isn't the kind of unbranded packaging we'd see on cigarettes and roll-your-own now, but it's relatively simple to reproduce, especially RYO. Our own pack swap data now shows that about 50% of the roll-your-own market is illegal tobacco.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, it's 9:30 on Thursday the 22nd of August, live across the UK. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Bev Turner, and Dawn Neeson, who's in for Andrew Pearce.
Indeed. Any moment now, the Home Office will publish both the legal and illegal migration stats. We're bringing you the latest on those.
And it's GCSE results day. It's a nail-biting morning for teenagers and their families across England, Wales and Northern Ireland as results are picked up in GCSEs and BTECs. Are you involved in this? Let us know.
Well, the nerves were high and the adrenaline was pumping here at St Gregory's this morning, but there's now lots of happy faces as many of the pupils have picked up their results.
And hundreds of students.
I think we lost him there. Right, meanwhile, we move back to Italy. 5 bodies have been found. Tech tycoon Mike Lynch's body has been brought to shore after the sunken yacht incident in Sicily. The search continues for his 18-year-old daughter, Hannah.
A sombre mood here in Porticello as that 5th body is brought to shore earlier this morning. Search teams resuming their investigation for the final body.
And is this the latest? Alzheimer's wonder drug? Lecanemab is being described as the beginning of the end of the disease and is set to be approved for use in Britain. We'll tell you more.
So lots to talk about this morning, and good luck out there if you're opening that envelope. It's such an exciting day, and I can't remember mine. Beth did really, really well. She can remember it. But let us know what you think. What are your experiences today? Because this show is all about what you think. So post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay. But first, let's get the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Dawn, thank you and good morning. The top stories from the GB Newsroom. British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch has been confirmed as among the dead after a super yacht sank off the coast of Sicily this week. That coming from the Italian Coast Guard this morning. The search has now resumed for the remaining missing person after the luxury yacht sank on Monday. The 5th out of 6 bodies in total so far was recovered from the wreck and brought to shore this morning as rescue efforts are continuing into a 4th day now. 6 people, including Mike Lynch's 18-year-old daughter Hannah, were unaccounted for after the vessel sank in the early hours of the morning. The identities of the other recovered bodies haven't been confirmed by authorities. Detectives investigating the murder of a parcel delivery driver in Leeds have arrested a 32-year-old man. Police launched a murder investigation yesterday after a delivery driver was involved in a collision during an attempted theft of his van. Officers found the 42-year-old victim was unconscious when they arrived on the scene. He was given emergency treatment by ambulance staff but was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, concerns about children being physically punished have more than tripled in a year, according to the NSPCC. The charity said its helpline had heard about children being slapped, hit and shaken as punishment. It's urging the new government to close the legal defence of reasonable chastisement in England. It said contacts with physical punishment was mentioned had increased from 447 in the 12 months to March last year to almost 1,500 this year. And rail talks continue today as the RMT meet with Network Rail to discuss their pay. The RMT met with officials at the Department for Transport on Tuesday to discuss a pay rise for its members at train operating companies. RMT General Secretary Mick Lynch said all offers would be dealt with by the unions after talks are completed with Network Rail and the MOD today. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Very good morning, 9:34. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the UK with me, Bev Turner, and Dawn Newsome, because Andrew is still on his holidays.
In his budgie smugglers, thank you, Bev. You didn't even have to say it this morning. I'm getting the mental image already. Now, hundreds of thousands of teenagers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland are opening those GCSE results today, as a proportion of students receiving the highest grades has fallen from last year, but remains higher than before the COVID-19 pandemic.
So we want to hear from you this morning. Do you have a teenager in your life who is getting their GCSE results? Have you ever needed to prove your qualifications? Because we were talking about this, and I can remember the grades that I got. You're not sure you can remember your O-levels.
I mean, I know roughly the subjects I took. I know I got 9 of them, and I know they were roughly a combination. I think I got a couple of A's, but mainly B's and C's. But if you ask me to list them like you can list yours, I've got no idea.
The thing is, we give kids mixed messages now with GCSEs, because my 15-year-old, who will sit hers this time next year, had said to me, yeah, but they don't really matter, do they, Mum? And it's like, they do to open the next door.
Yes.
But actually, after that, no one will probably ever ask you to prove whether you had such grades or when you got them.
Yeah. And I think that's the important thing. I think that's the important message. It is important because, A, it gives you a sense of achievement. You've studied, you've worked hard, you deserve this. But also... B,
not always, but I know what you mean.
But yeah, but it opens those doors to go to a good sixth form college, and then get good A-levels. And, you know, education, as we were talking about as well, especially if you're working class, is really the key to pretty much everything.
Yeah.
But so
it is.
Good luck.
We've got a great show today. We've got all sorts of different topics we're going to be talking about between now and midday. And, of course, don't forget we've got the immigration figures as well, legal and illegal migration. We're going to be bringing those when they land, hopefully any minute now. Let's go to Sophie Reaper, though, who is at St Gregory's Catholic High School. Sophie, you only did your GCSEs about 2 years ago, didn't you? Can you remember what you got and what's going on there this morning?
Well, it was slightly longer ago than that, I can tell you that for a fact. But I still remember it as if it were yesterday. But here at St Gregory's, I think there was a lot of nerves this morning. But now that most of them have got their results, there's a lot of happy faces. Here, they've got little balloons marking the grades for their pupils. And we need this one now for our next guest who's joining me. It's head girl at St Gregory's, Joanna. Joanna, that's for you. And tell our viewers why you need that number 9.
Because I got 7 9s and 3 8s.
7 9s and 3 8s, and that means, Joanna, I know you're going to be embarrassed that I say this on air, she got the best results in her entire year group. So amazing, amazing results from you there, Joanna. Talk to us about how you went about getting such phenomenal results. I mean, there's so many 9s on there.
I know, I think I just worked really hard. Like, I started quite early. As soon as I did my year 11 mocks in December, I just carried with the flow there and just started revising properly from then on. Just had like different revision tactics for everyone. So like you can't revise maths the same way you revise history. So with my maths, I knew I had to do like loads of practice questions, but with my history, I had to know my content. So I just had to learn how to revise each subject basically.
And I know we were speaking off camera, weren't we? And I asked you who put the pressure on, and it wasn't your parents, was it? Who puts the most pressure on?
It's me.
Yes, you.
Yeah.
And are you glad that you did that now? I mean, they speak for themselves, don't they?
That's true, to be fair. I don't think I should have put as much pressure on myself, if I'm being honest, but you know what, the results speak for themselves, so I mean, yeah.
And when you opened that envelope this morning, were you expecting such fabulous results, or were you nervous? What were you feeling?
I wasn't expecting this much, I can't lie. I was quite nervous, to be fair. Yeah, but I'm so happy. Like, as soon as I saw them, I was like, no way, I can't believe I've got all these, but yeah.
So, head girl, amazing exam results, best in the year group. Yeah. What does the future hold for such a phenomenal young student?
Well, I'm hoping to go to college, hoping to do English, Lit, History, Economics there. After that, I'm hoping to do law at university, so yeah.
Well, I think we can safely say that you may be one of our future bright legal minds in this country. Joanna, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations once again, absolutely phenomenal results, and good luck. I'm sure you will do amazing things. Thank you so much. I mean, how many 9s? She deserves that balloon, because you talk about my exam results, I certainly didn't do as well as Joanna, so amazing work from her.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you. We've got the immigration figures coming in, but we do want to go quickly to East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, who's at Henegate Spencer Academy in Derbyshire. Morning, Will. What's happening there?
Good morning. It is a day quite unlike any other. There is magic in the air here at Hina Gate Spencer Academy, and I'm joined by Jack and Nancy. Jack, how have your results gone this morning for your GCSEs?
I'm quite impressed, mainly in Spanish and geography. I've impressed myself. Got what I needed to for sixth form, so I'm happy, yeah.
Fantastic. You're going to be coming back to sixth form here, or are you going to go somewhere else?
I'm going to be coming back here, yeah.
Fantastic. Nancy, what are those results looking like this morning?
I'm really pleased with them. I worked so hard for them, so I'm not surprised, but it's just a shock when you open them.
How much work went into it? What was it, sleepless nights and early mornings?
Unreal, the amount of past papers I did and just revision cards all the time. Working hard in lessons as well, it just all pays off.
And how did you feel when you first got that brown envelope and first learnt your results? Before you learnt them, how nervous were you?
I felt like I was going to be sick, honestly. I cried this morning, I cried when I opened them. Honestly, it's so overwhelming, but it's all right in the end.
What about you? How did it feel on the way into school this morning, the first time coming back since finishing in July?
I just tried not to be too nervous, really, because I knew I'd tried my best and that was all I could do at the end of the day. So, yeah, still a little bit nervous, but...
Jack, you're going to be staying here for the sixth form. What comes later in life? Where does this road lead?
Honestly, to be honest, I've no idea yet. Just going to, see what I do well and see what I enjoy in sixth form and just see where that takes me, really.
I can see there are some fantastic results there. Nancy, where are you going in the future? What's the dream?
Well, I'm coming here for sixth form, but then I want to work in education, either with like primary school children or, I'm not really sure, in behaviour or something, but I really like school anyway, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity for me to work here as well, or in a primary school close.
Congratulations so much to you two on your results, and thank you so much in sharing it for not just me here at Hina Gate Spencer Academy, but for the whole audience watching on GB News at home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Will. Well done, everybody, today. gbnews.com/your say to let us know how you've got on. And does it really matter, your GCSE results in the fullness of time?
Just read this one out, 'cause this is lovely. It's just come in straight away. This is from David Miller. I'm saying your full name, David. Good morning. I'm so proud of our granddaughter, Jessica, who passed all her exams today. She's just a star. So congratulations, Jessica.
Now, next, we're going to be crossing over to Sicily as the search for the missing passengers who were on board the sunken super yacht resumes this morning, and the latest immigration figures have just landed. Mark White will be here to tell us what they mean. Don't go anywhere. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I want to see a flagpole, and I want to see the Union Jack when it's necessary. I must say I don't want to see some other flags, maybe, but that's my opinion. I'm one of the, I'm classed as a dinosaur. I'm an oldie, so I go for what I want to know.
Well, you're not a dinosaur in our books. What would you say to the people who were complaining about the Union flag and saying that it's a sign of national? What's your response to them?
Well, in this village, best thing is for them to get out of it. I'm being quite blunt. That's how I feel. I've lived in this village 60-odd years, 62 years, nearly 63 years. We've never had this problem. In our early days, we all helped each other. No one went against anybody. We agreed things. We used to have meetings up the village hall, as it was then. And it was all OK, but all of a sudden we've got newcomers coming in, and I'm not against it because we've got quite a few, and a lot of them are damn nice people, but we've just got one or two who are a bit anti. And, they don't do nothing much for the village, but they soon put the spoke in when we want to do something like that. That's my feeling.
But you think we should be proud of our national symbols, proud of our national flag?
Definitely, yeah. I was in the army. I only did national service, and when I finished national service, I was ill for a while actually. But anyhow, and then I went and joined the prison service, and that's how I've worked in things which the flag is important to us. we should almost be proud of it. Not like these people that say we shouldn't have it because it might upset somebody because it's not their flag. Well, so what? You know, it's our flag. So we should be proud of it. Sod the rest of them. Excuse my... but that's me.
The People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 9:45. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Now, don't go too far because we do have those all-important immigration figures coming up for you with Mark Wright. But loads of you have been getting in touch about the GCSE results, so congratulations to everybody out there. I mean, Paul Aaron says, well done to everyone who's passed their exams and good luck to the future. Being proud of your results and efforts is not wrong. And the point of your message, Aaron, is we need intelligence to run this country as it should be run, not the way it's happening.
Now, why did you miss out? Why did you miss out that line?
I didn't miss it.
You just say that some youths
scrolling down
waste their lives racing cars around the streets or standing on a street corner, smoking and selling drugs.
That's enough about us, Bev. What about everybody else?
I'm with you, Aaron. We do need to get kids off the street corners and back into classrooms or doing at least something. We've got a record number of young people not in education, work or training at the moment. So.
And this one is completely not connected, but I just had a shock. Walked into the room where GB News is on, did a double take. I thought Bev Turner was the Princess of Wales.
Well, thank you very much.
I'll take that as a compliment.
You do look good. As long as I didn't think you were Andrew Pearce.
Entirely possible.
Right, Charles. Listen, Home and Security Head Mark White is with us in the studio now. Hot from looking at these figures, Mark. I know this was only a couple of minutes ago. What do we know?
Yeah, it's my worst point of the year when we have to go through all these stats. Forgive me, they are pretty impenetrable, but we've just been sort of pouring through the latest migration figures, legal and illegal. So in terms of work visas issued,
and just it's to June 2024.
This is the year to June this year,
right?
Basically,
are these the annual ones as well, year on year as well? Have they
it's quarterly, but they go back a year. Yeah. So just think of it as a year to June this year.
Yeah, okay.
There were 286,382 work visas that were granted in the year ending June. That's 11% fewer than the previous year. However, to put that in context, it's more than double the 2019 levels. Now, there were 89,095 health and care worker visas granted to main applicants in the year ending June. That is a 26% decrease compared to the previous year, with a notable fall in the latest quarter, April to June, which was down 81%. So basically in the last 3 months, from April to June, a staggering drop of 81%. And a significant proportion of that will be down to the fact that, of course, they've increased the threshold with which you can qualify to come across and work, but also in terms of bringing dependents over, that's been clamped down on, so that will have seen a reduction in the numbers applying for these health worker visas.
As far as we know, Mark, do Labour have any plans to change that, or are they keeping? Because obviously that was a Conservative policy.
If they do, I don't know about it as yet.
Okay.
And the thing I think to mention as we go through these stats, the important thing is this is nothing to do with Labour. This is all under the previous government's watch. So any improvements, you know, the current government can't really claim responsibility for any downward trend we're noticing.
It's also just exasperating that if this is good news figures for the Conservatives, that Sunak went so early on his election. Anyway,
yeah, there you go. No, you're absolutely right. Which is kind of, you know, people, but you know, can't really get their heads around why on earth he was going so early when improvements were being noticed, when the Rwanda scheme hadn't even started to see if it would be a deterrent.
Imagine being able to say an 81% reduction in people coming over. I know that's just healthcare sector April to June, but anyway, carry on.
Well, it just, again, it just adds to what some people believe was a cataclysmic decision to go as early as he did, but there we are. Now, there were 260,392 visas issued to work dependents, so this is important. This is the previous government clamping down on those because, of course, people coming to study or to work were bringing significant numbers of people dependents over, which was just adding to our net migration figures. So 260,000 just over dependents in the year to June, with health and care worker dependents alone accounting for 69% of the total. Now, what I don't have is whether that's a reduction or not. I haven't been able to find that in the stats yet. In terms of students, always interesting. There were 432,225 sponsored study visas, student visas, granted to foreign students in the year ending June 2024. That's 13%, fewer than the previous year, but 61% again higher than 2019, just to put it in context there. 2/3, 65% of student visas in the latest year were for master's level courses.
So older students.
And then in the first 6 months of 2024, that's January to June, visas issued to dependents of students fell by 81%.
This is the one a lot of people go on about, isn't it? Why do you need dependents?
Again, you know, this would have been a really good announcement for Rishi Sunak to be. Fell by 81% to 11,675 compared to the same period in 2023. Now, shall we turn to the boats? We know the figures. They're just over 19,000 compared to the previous year. It's about 10% increase. So it's not that. But what's always interesting about the illegal migration figures are the breakdowns, where the countries are coming from. So the top country represented on these boats was Afghanistan, 5,370 in the year to June. That's followed by Iran, 3,844. Then in third place, Vietnam, just over 3,000. Turkey, just under 3,000. Turkey. But what's happening with Turkey is there's a very particular issue, and that's Turkish Kurds who come and they claim that as Kurdish minority, they're oppressed by the Turkish government, and they usually have a very strong case for asylum.
And there's also a lot of Pakistanis who are coming via the Turkish route, and they say they are coming from Turkey, they're not Turkish.
Well, indeed. And they throw their identity documents away. And then in fifth of the top 5 is Syria with 2,849. Now, what's the interesting thing about those 5 nationalities that were broken down there? Every single one, bar Vietnam, are countries that the UK government would be powerless to send these people back to. So even if they decide you actually don't fit the requirements for asylum, we're not granting you asylum, they'll get leave to remain anyway, because you can't return them to Afghanistan or Iran or Syria or even Turkey if they're a Turkish Kurd.
Which is where the Rwanda scheme
Exactly
worked,
that.
because you could have sent them to Rwanda. You can't return them to Afghanistan or Iran. The other interesting stat that we're learning is 85% of the small boat arrivals in 12 months to March 2024 were male, and the age was recorded, and nearly a fifth were between 25 and 39. And this is what we keep hearing from viewers out there. So many young men still.
Yes, no, of course. That's the demographics. Vast majority young working age men coming over on these boats, with very few women and children. But to go back to your Rwanda point, I think it's an important key point, because something that was never really spoken about in Rwanda, it was always the message they were hammering home was this was the deterrent to the small boats, but it was also the option as well to send people to countries that you couldn't send them back to.
We're going to be talking to you throughout the morning, Mark. We've run out of time just for now. Don't go anywhere. It appears to be autumn outside. Who knew? Here's your weather.
brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A pretty unsettled start to the day today. There's some warnings in force through this morning. Rain will spread south and east through the rest of the day. And a further batch of rain is expected tonight. But once the rain does clear parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, it will be still quite windy through much of the day, but it's a generally improving picture across northwestern areas. Still a few showers to come, though. And the cloud and rain will spread into the south and east, but much of the heavier rain will have moved away. So in any sunshine, temperatures still pretty disappointing for the time of year, in the high teens for most areas. But in any sheltered sunshine, we could just about reach 21 or 22 degrees. So fairly fine end to the evening for parts of eastern Scotland, eastern parts of northern England as well. That's where we'll see the best of the sunshine this evening. Temperatures around 17 degrees to end the day. Across the west, though, still some showers moving in where we're exposed to the breeze, temperatures in the lower teens. Clouds already building across Northern Ireland and parts of Wales by the end of this evening ahead of the next weather front due overnight. But for many areas of England and Wales, it should be a dry and fine evening away from the far southeast. As I said, it's going to turn more unsettled overnight tonight. An area of low pressure will sweep across the country, bringing a spell of very heavy rain and also some quite strong winds, particularly through Friday morning across northwestern areas. Gales are quite likely. So with lots of cloud and rain around, it's fairly tropical air. Temperatures are going to be milder than average by tomorrow morning. But as I said, it's going to be a wet start to the day, potentially some localised flooding issues. But that rain will sweep away quite quickly through Friday morning. Once it does clear, it will bring there will be a much drier and finer picture for the rest of Friday. Still a few showers, particularly across north and eastern areas of Scotland, as well as parts of Northern Ireland. But in any sunshine, 22 or 23 degrees, but still quite breezy through the rest of Friday. Stay tuned and I'll see you later.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for a Thursday morning. In Kent, the coastbound M20, Operation Brock in place from Junction 8 for Leeds Castle and the Maidstone services to Junction 9 at Ashford. In South Yorkshire, the southbound M1, a lane closed due to a broken down vehicle, Junction 33 for Catcliffe, Sheffield and Rotherham to Junction 32 for the M18 interchange. In Buckinghamshire, the southbound M1, the lane blocked on the slip road to the Newport Pagnell services due to a broken down car, and also as well at the moment in Surrey, the southbound M23, one lane closed due to a broken down vehicle. That's going to affect you from Junction 8 for the M25 to Junction 9 for Gatwick Airport. And in Essex, the clockwise M25, one lane is closed due to emergency repairs following an earlier car fire. That's going to affect you just after Junction 27 for the M11, of course. So just be aware of that this morning. That could slow you down, cause some added time to your journey. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Thursday, the 22nd of August. Live across the United Kingdom, this is Britain's Newsroom with me, Dawn Neeson, in for Andrew Pearce and the lovely Beth Turner.
Good morning, thank you for joining us. So, the government has just released the migration statistics. Legal migration is down. Ray Addison has more.
Yes, with legal migration down, but illegal migration remaining steady. I'll be getting the view from Nigel Farage's constituency, Clacton.
And meanwhile, GCSE results day, a nail-biting morning for the teenagers across England, Wales and Northern Ireland as they pick up those important exam results.
Lots of happy faces here at St Gregory's High School in Warrington as the head teacher
And it's also a big day here at Gate Spencer Academy in Derbyshire as hundreds of students find out where they'll be going next in their future.
And perhaps unsurprisingly, Labour has declared war on the motorist. The Transport Secretary has given the green light to more low-traffic neighbourhoods and 20-mile-an-hour zones across Britain. Let us know what you think of that.
Heard of thunk it, eh? Meanwhile, Alzheimer's wonder drug, lecanemab, is being described as the beginning of the end for this horrible disease and is set to be approved for use in Britain. More details to come soon.
And we're going to have a little debate about age gap relationships.
I just had a voice in my ear shouting, younger men, and it's like, was that an offer? I'm thinking, maybe.
Well, we are going to be talking about the growing trend for older women and younger men partners.
And one of us may have already taken that offer.
That's not why we're discussing it, though.
No, we're not, no.
We're going to be having a debate. Christian Hamilton's going to be part of that. GBnews.com/your say. First, though, the very latest news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Bev, thank you. The top stories. British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch has been confirmed as among the dead after a super yacht sank off the coast of Sicily this week, that coming from the Italian Coast Guard this morning. The search has resumed for the remaining missing person after the luxury yacht sank on Monday. The fifth out of 6 bodies in total so far was recovered from the wreck and brought to shore this morning, as rescue efforts are continuing into 4th day now. The Italian Coast Guard has also confirmed that the 6th and final person yet to be found is a woman. 6 people, including Mike Lynch's 18-year-old daughter Hannah, were unaccounted for after the vessel sank in the early hours of the morning. The identities of the other recovered bodies haven't yet been confirmed by authorities. Hundreds of thousands of teenagers have received their GCSE results, with a slight drop in the proportion of top grades awarded from last year. The approach to grading in England returned to pre-pandemic levels last year, and this year exam regulators in Wales and Northern Ireland have also made the transition. The results are similar to last year, with more than a fifth of entries awarded the top grade, slightly down on 22% last year, but higher than in 2019 before the COVID pandemic. Detectives investigating the murder of a parcel delivery driver in Leeds have arrested a 32-year-old man. Police launched a murder investigation yesterday after a delivery driver was involved in a collision during an attempted theft of his van. Officers found the 42-year-old victim unconscious when they arrived at the scene. He was given emergency treatment by ambulance staff but was pronounced dead at the scene. An audit has found a number of security failings at a jail after a prisoner allegedly escaped, according to a new report. HMP Wandsworth's independent monitoring board said the audit identified 81 points of failure and resulted in long overdue upgrades being made to CCTV cameras which had not worked for over a year. Daniel Khalif is accused of fleeing custody in September last year while being held on remand over spy charges. He allegedly strapped himself underneath a food delivery lorry and was arrested a few days later. The former soldier denies all of the charges against him and he's due to stand trial in October. Concerns about children being physically punished have more than tripled in a year, according to the NSPCC. The charity said its helpline had heard about children being slapped, hit and shaken as punishment. It's urging the government to close the legal defence of reasonable chastisement in England. It said contacts where physical punishment was mentioned had increased from 447 in the 12 months to March last year to almost 1,500 in the year to March this year. The UK is falling behind other high-income countries due to long waits for hospital care. That's according to a new study. The Health Foundation says the UK is among the poorest performing countries when it comes to hospital-based care. A decade ago, the UK was one of the best nations for people seeing hospital specialists in less than 4 weeks. But it has, quote, slipped from being one of the better performing nations in 2013 to one of the worst in 2023, according to new analysis by think tank. Ukraine has attacked Moscow with at least 11 drones in what Russian officials called one of the biggest drone strikes on the capital since the war began in February 2 years ago. Russia's defence ministry said its air defences destroyed a total of 45 drones over Russian territory. The war escalated on the 6th of August when Ukraine sent thousands of soldiers into Russia's western Kursk region. US President Joe Biden spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu last night about the ceasefire and hostage release deal and diplomatic efforts to de-escalate regional tensions. The White House has said that Biden stressed to Netanyahu the urgency of bringing the ceasefire and hostage deal to a closure. They also reportedly discussed the upcoming talks in Cairo in order to remove any remaining obstacles. Their call followed US Secretary of State Antony Blinken's trip to the Middle East that ended on Tuesday without an agreement between Israel and Hamas militants on a truce in the Palestinian enclave. Negotiators who have struggled for months to conclude a ceasefire deal plan to meet in the coming days in Cairo. And a dozen magnificent oaks have been chosen for the shortlist for this year's Tree of the Year contest, with the public now able to vote for their favourite. A tree that sheltered 19th century children's tea parties, the UK's widest oak, and one which is shaped like an elephant are among those selected for the public vote in the annual competition. Some of the oaks are over 1,000 years old, and according to the charity Woodland Trust, oaks can live more than 1,500 years and support 2,300 different species of wildlife, and the UK has more ancient oaks than the rest of Western Europe combined. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's Bevan Dawn this morning. So the government has just released their quarterly migration statistics. Legal migration is down, whilst illegal migration remains steady.
And one stat shows that Afghans make up the biggest nationality crossing the Channel in those small boats.
Well, joining us now is GB News reporter Ray Addison, who is in Clacton, of course, Nigel Farage's constituency for the Reform UK Party. Good morning, Ray. What are the major concerns there about immigration?
Well, I'm here today speaking to residents, to business people and to politicians as well to find out their reaction to these figures. Tough stance, their announcement of the measures that they're introducing to try and crack down on illegal migration. I'm joined by Councillor of the Reform UK group. Councillor, thanks so much for joining us. What's your reaction to these numbers?
Well, it's difficult to actually fully understand at the moment because, as we've just looked through, you know, the government have released some figures and they're actually rather confusing at the moment as to what they actually mean. The government releases confusing figures. Well, there's a surprise.
Work visas down. The number of dependents is down. There's a general trend that these are smaller numbers, which many people did have concern. Pressure on results.
Numbers, by the looks of them, are still huge numbers. I mean, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and even the 90s, up until 97, net immigration was between 30 and 50,000. Last year we saw figures explode to 683,000, and now, you know, if they're slightly down, well, they're still miles away where they need to be. It's like saying if you had a favourite football team, you know, you lost 10-0 last week and now you've lost 8-0 this week, and isn't that a good result? Well, no, it's still an awful result, and that's what most people will view these figures.
Well, I was speaking to a businessman earlier here in Clacton, and he was saying that his business, hospitality and care, they depend on immigrant labour for the workforce, and these figures would be bad news for him. The number of health and care workers, for example, are down, visas issued are down by 26%.
Well, I think that you know, I mean, I heard that in the interview, and one of the things that he actually said as well is that he thinks that you know, migrants and illegal migrants should be given the opportunity to work whilst they're here, whilst they're claiming asylum. I think that's absolutely a dreadful idea, because all that will do is encourage even more people here to this country. What we should be doing is sending a clear message: if you come to this country illegally, that you to remain in this country. And what we need to do is to tackle this at source, which is to turn the boats around and send these boats back to France, and I think that's what most people actually view. The other thing in terms of, you know, working people in this country, I think, you know, increase the taxable sort of limit to £20,000. That way, that would encourage more people to come off benefits, make work pay, and actually get people back to work. And I think that would alleviate that problem that the businessman mentioned earlier.
Councillor, thanks very much for joining us. Sadly, we've got to end it there just purely for time, but we are speaking to people throughout the entire day here in Clacton. We might even pop down to the air show as well and get the thoughts of people there.
OK, thank you very much, Ray. That was Ray talking to Peter Harris there, one of the local councillors. Interesting story, actually. There were 4 tendering councillors down there who were previously independents. They were Conservatives originally in 2023, and they've recently changed allegiance to be part of Reform UK, because obviously that is Nigel's constituency. Just to clarify who that was. Right, Mark White is in the studio with us. Had a little bit more time to digest these figures.
Not much more time,
Not much more.
You've had 10 minutes. Come on.
We have enormous faith in you. So just for people who are tuning in, what are the main headlines?
So the key stats that are worth talking about are work visas that were issued. 286,300 odd were granted in the year up to June this year. That is 11% down on the previous year, double what it was in 2019, just to put it into context, but 11% down. So going in the right direction under Rishi Sunak, if he'd still been in office. There were 89,000, just over, health and care worker visas granted in the year to June 2024. Now, that's a 26% decrease compared to the previous year, and a very notable fall, actually, in the first 3 months of this year, between April and June, where it was down 81% on the same period the year before. And that's down to things like, for instance, the threshold in terms of the salary threshold, and also because of the issue around dependents, where the government was restricting the number of dependents that could be brought across. That would have an impact, and clearly that is now being felt as well.
So just to be clear with what that means then, so that means that if you want to come across to be a healthcare worker from, I don't know, let's pick a country.
Philippines.
Philippines, exactly. Previously, you could have said, I'm going to come over, I'm going to bring my teenage son, my daughter, my husband and my mum, and the government said, you can't do that anymore. That's what's changed.
There are some exceptions, but as a rule, the number of dependents has been absolutely slashed. And there were 260,000 visas that were issued to work dependents, we're told, between in the year ending this year, June, sorry. with healthcare worker dependents alone accounting for 69%. What I still haven't been able to find is actually whether that's up or down. But that will be very significantly down.
Yeah.
There is no doubt, because that avenue has been closed off, as we know. Now, in terms of student visas, this is one as well that accounts for so many of the net migration figure stats that we get. 432,000 just over student visas were issued in the year to June. That's 13% fewer, 13% down on the same period last year. 61% higher, though, again, to put it in context, than it was 5 years ago. Two-thirds, 65% of student visas were for master level courses. And then in the first 6 months of June 2024, January to June, visas issued to dependents of students fell by 81%. So again, another really positive stat that Rishi Sunak, had he still been in office, would have been able to tell people about. 81% drop to 11,675,000. And then if we look at the issue around illegal migration, in particular the small boats that are crossing, the nationalities is the important thing, because we already know what the totals are. It's 19,000 just over this year, which is 10% higher than the previous year. But on the boats represented in the year to June this year, the number one nation represented on the boats was Afghanistan, with 5,370 Afghans on board these small boats. Iran was the second highest nationality represented on the boat, with 3,844. Then Vietnam and third. They have surged, actually, in terms of the nation. It was China, India for a while, but Vietnam has taken over. They have trends. It's who the people smugglers reach out to at a particular time and can persuade to come over.
That's the success of their marketing campaigns.
They are incredibly sophisticated and good at marketing, and they will target a country, and you will see for 6 months or so a big surge in Indians coming across, or Pakistanis,
Do we have an agreement with Vietnam now, a return agreement? I thought we had set one up recently.
Well, it's a lot. I'm not sure whether there's a specific returns agreement, but it is a lot easier to return to the nation of Vietnam, a beautiful holiday destination.
Lots of viewers, if they're lucky, will be able to afford to go to.
In the same way that it's a lot easier to return people to Albania. That Vietnam is fine, but of course the other countries represented are Turkey. Now these will be people who are saying, I'm sure, that they are Turkish Kurds, and as such they're oppressed by the Turkish government, and as such they probably would stand a good chance of getting asylum in this country. And then Syria is the fifth country, the fifth most represented on these small boats. And as I was saying just before, 4 of the 5 top nationalities on these boats are countries that, as a government, you would not be able to send people back to. That would be fought in the courts, and the government would lose, no doubt about that.
So we do have a returns agreement with Vietnam, which was only just agreed in April of this year. But it's just extraordinary. You know who I want to get on the phone? Joe Biden, and say, you know, when you just hot-footed it out of Afghanistan and you literally left your helicopters and you left all those people and you just decided your work was done here and you just left Afghanistan to become, just to go back in time with the Taliban in control and the women all oppressed and just go to rack and ruin. Well, 6,000 of them, 5,500 of them are landed on our door.
We see that manifest in a very real way, in who is represented on the small boats. In terms of the asylum backlog, it's always another one that exercises people, understandably. We're told that the so-called legacy backlog, those are people that...
waiting in the hotel to have their claims processed.
Yeah, awaiting an initial decision at the end of June 2024 is 1,891. Now, the asylum applications made before June the 28th, 2022 are considered to be legacy
So that doesn't sound
cases.
like a very high number.
No, No, and exactly so. So 2 years ago, in 2022, it was 98,000. So the government has managed to bring the legacy backlog down from 98,000 to 1,891.
Briefly, I'm running out of time here, I know. But everything we are seeing, all the facts you've gone through so brilliantly, are what the Conservative government was doing, basically. Have we heard from Labour this morning about these figures? Have they said anything?
Not as yet. There's no statement from the current government. As I say, the thing to emphasise on this is all, you know, if there are gains made, which there clearly are, was all under the Conservative government, nothing to do with the new government, who I'm sure are very happy to take the ball and run with it, as Boris Johnson might say.
Unbelievable. Rishi Sunak, if you sat at home this morning just having your coffee and your bacon butty, is it a day that he eats? It's a Thursday. Just get in touch and just tell us why you went quite so early on the election, given that you could claim that you'd got the legacy asylum backlog down from 98,000 to 1,900.
I should say there's still 118,000 awaiting an initial decision, but there's always a big number of people in the system. That is something that the current government is absolutely determined, they say, to whittle right down so that you are dealt with in weeks, maybe months, but not hanging on for years.
Oh, give it 6 months and wait for Labour to take all the credit for these numbers then.
I'm surprised they haven't done so already. Well, we're moving on. Unfortunately, for time-wise, up next, Labour had declared war on the motorist, or has it? Transport Secretary Louise Haigh said she welcomed more low-traffic neighbourhoods and 20-mile-an-hour zones. Oh, please, no. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. We'll see you soon. Don't go too far.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Should footballers just stop taking the knee? It's time for our head-to-head.
I don't want to see people on their knees. I want to see the FA or UEFA or all of those, FIFA, all leading from the top. And that would be that if half of the players, and it's practically half of them, are of colour, why is that not even remotely replicated at the top? So to me, I just see it as an empty gesture. What is the point of it? It's been going on for years and still not much has happened. And the bottom line is this: these clubs are rich. Football is rich. Everything. If they really wanted to prosecute racists on the terraces, they really could, and they haven't. And they've had years to do it. So why would getting down on one knee now change it? It's not changing anything. It needs to start from the top, and it hasn't.
I do wonder, Jason, whether or not it has much of an impact. I mean, at the start of games or in the highlight shows, etc., match of the day, it does seem like, right, OK, so we'll take the knee, and the commentator will go out of his way or her way to tell us what a wonderful thing this is. And, suspiciously at times I do wonder whether or not the fan sound goes down, because I've been at a few football games where it's not been that well received, but you don't tend to see that in the highlight shows. And then there might be a round of applause for something else, and there might be something else going on, and eventually we get a bit of football. Do the fans actually like this?
I don't know. You have to ask them, to be honest. I think there are many different people why they boo. That people do think it's virtual signalling, that it's done for show. But I think that it can only be a good thing in my mind that we are discussing this, and we all realise I think in 100 years' time, this conversation could still be going on. There still needs to be work done. There still needs to make sure that the Argentinian national side to be singing racist songs about black African-American footballers that now play for the French national side are getting racially abused. That tells me only one thing, that the message is still not getting across.
GB News.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
she could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's Tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's Bev and Dawn. This morning, while Andrew's on his holidays, Carol Malone is now with us. He's on his holidays.
Again?
I know, it's ridiculous. Carol Malone is with us in the studio, and Jonathan Liss as well this morning.
Good morning.
Both. Right, can we kick off with Labour's war on the motorist, Carol? We kind of suspected this might happen.
Yeah.
Wales had backpedalled a little bit on the 20-mile-an-hour zones because it had gone down so badly. And now the government here is saying that we can do the same.
So Louise Haig is just saying, I'm just fascinated by your eyes as well, by the way, they look fabulous. Lots of people... Now, there's a lot of very misleading information out there which says that these zones prevent accidents and that they keep carbon emissions down. It's simply not true. You know, TfL on its website today has a piece of information that says that lowering the speed limit lowers carbon emissions. It is not a peer-reviewed study. It's been disputed by so many people, but they want to do it because they can fine everyone. Exactly. Because everyone goes up to 21, 22, 23 miles an hour, and they're going to fine everyone. So no real data that says that it reduces accidents either. Oh, hang on. What? Oh, yes. No. Yes. Sorry. My this is just our accoutrements. Yeah. And this is just a very cynical way to raise even more money. And what it does, it actually creates more carbon emissions. It slows the traffic down. I've come in here today, 20 miles an hour. The guy kept to the speed limits. It took twice as long as it would have done because the roads are empty at school holidays. Yeah. It took forever. And I don't know why they want to slow down. I think Labour just hates cars.
It's absolute classic virtue signalling, this, Jonathan. If we wrap it all up in that we're saving the environment, doesn't matter how much we inconvenience people's lives, or because also it's making a fortune for the local councils. There are some roads, absolutely, which should be 20 miles an hour. Built-up areas, schools, especially in London, where you've got cars bumper to bumper, you can't see who's coming out, definitely. But this is just all fakery.
Look, I have to say that I do actually have mixed feelings about the 20-mile-per-hour thing. As a motorist, driving at midnight, 1 a.m. On roads that used to be 30 miles per hour, and obviously there are speed cameras of 20, and I obviously would be keeping the speed limit even if there weren't speed cameras. But that could be frustrating. But as a citizen, I think that they're useful, and I do have to say that looking at the evidence, there are lots of studies that show a decrease in fatalities and accidents. The studies dispute how much the decrease is, but all of the studies show that accidents go down, and the traffic volumes go down. There is Carol, let me just finish. There is a debate about emissions. I absolutely agree with you. There are various studies. Some say that actually it's pollution neutral. Other studies suggest that emissions might go down. So on that point, I actually will concede something.
There's a study just come out by the Queen's University in Belfast, which says it has little or no impact on road safety. They tested 76 streets in Belfast, and there was no impact on road safety. So I think we're just being conned, and we know. Just go to TfL's website today and look at the report on carbon emissions there. It is not peer-reviewed. You can't put information out that hasn't been peer-reviewed because we know that the council employs certain people to...
But Bev, the other point here, the actual story here is not that the government is imposing 20-mile-per-hour limits on anyone. It's what we're all meant to agree with, which is decentralisation and giving councils the power to enforce their own sort of rules on their roads with low traffic neighbourhoods. Low traffic neighbourhoods take many different forms, one of which is obviously lower speed limits. And so I would very much hope that councils would seek public consultation before implementing any changes.
That's the issue.
That is the big issue. They don't. And what Louise Haig has done is just given them permission not to seek consultation from residents, which is appalling.
She just empowered some little local councillor who thinks we can make a fortune by making that road a low-traffic neighbourhood. It's happened in where I live in West London. My mum came to pick up my kids. She went down a road, didn't realise you can't do it, and she got, a £60 ticket.
It's also...
The signage is very misleading.
I know where that is. I know where you're talking about.
Ka-ching, by community school. Exactly. And it's pernicious, and it's not transparent, and it's not helping anybody because all the traffic where I live now gets all stuck onto one road on the A316, which queues bumper to bumper to bumper all the way down, kicking out pollution where the school is. It doesn't make
any
sense.
And you also get frustrated, so when you can go faster, you go abnormally fast, which I think is even more dangerous.
Which is dangerous.
You're so frustrated.
Yeah. And you're constantly keeping an eye on your...
And that is actually what causes emissions as well, the acceleration.
Right, we've got time for one more quick story. So, Jonathan, I'm going to stick with this one because I quite like this one. Calls for more working-class people in TV. What's this one about?
Well, as you'll be able to tell, Dawn, I'm not a working class person.
Mate.
But
what do you mean by that?
What do I mean? What do I mean?
What do you mean? I'm not a working class person. Like, how do we define that now in 2020?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, that is, I think, a conversation probably that requires a bit longer than this segment.
No, well, no, I don't.
Well, look, we're talking, fine. Well, you know, obviously it takes many forms. It takes the form of money, and your family, your upbringing, about
education.
the education, obviously, about whether you went to university, what kind of job you have. People can obviously become middle class. You know, you're not working class is not a sort of a genetic inheritance, obviously. There are lots of different factors. Most people understand the term experientially.
Why do you think you're...
Well, I mean, what the story is that a playwright who I absolutely love, James Graham, is given his McTaggart lecture at the Edinburgh TV Festival, and he's complained about the low numbers of working class people currently working in TV. Now, we know that there are many, many privately educated people, and far more proportion than there used to be, dominating the music industry, TV, because it's much harder to get in because people can't afford to get into those industries.
So,
that's right.
Oh, no, hang on a second.
Carol, what is your definition of working class out of interest?
Well, my definition of working class is the area that I was brought up. I was brought up in a mining village in the northeast, a very working class community. My parents both had 2 jobs each. We had no money. We had no carpets on the floor when I was 5 years old. I couldn't afford to go to university. So for me, that's working class.
But you're not now, though.
No.
You're posh, Carol.
No, I'm so not posh. Posh people would be the first to tell you that. No. What I have done, I've worked my way out of poverty, and I'm somewhere in the middle now. But I think this business about working...
So middle class.
I guess I've become middle class.
Yeah.
Where I live, you know, the job that I have, yes, I guess I've become middle class. Doesn't mean I'm rich by any stretch. I'm one of the ones that Rachel Reeves is going to clobber. That's what I am.
Well, I think this is the nub of this debate, Jonathan. Is your class defined by your upbringing, as Carol was just alluding to, or where you are now in life?
I think it's both. I think, absolutely. If you talk to sort of intellectual economists on the left, they will say it's about your economic circumstances right now, and that actually you can you can use the example about people having come from money, but actually currently, if you're not depending on those parents and you're living with other working class people, you are effectively working class, even though you might have had an extremely middle class upbringing.
Can we just go back to what the story's about? And the story's about working class people in telly. Working class people flood television. Every single soap that there is on the telly is peopled by working class people. I mean, they're not middle class.
But are they working class actors?
Of course they're working class actors.
Some are, some aren't.
Well, you don't watch soaps, so that's how.
How do you know?
Because I know. Because that's how I know you're not working class.
Well, I grew up on a diet of soaps.
Okay, so Coronation Street. What's the current storyline?
I haven't watched Corrie for a while.
So
from
what
the
about
south.
EastEnders?
Okay, well, I last watched the Christmas Day. Let's not. Hollyoaks. I'm not 15.
It is so. It's a shame we haven't got long off this debate because I absolutely love this, but I think it's so interesting. But we've got to move on now from Carol, formerly working, now middle class, and the champagne socialist.
I'm not a champagne socialist. I'm not a champagne socialist. I would love to be a champagne socialist.
You so are. Tatiana Sanchez is waiting for us with the news.
Bev, thank you very much. The top stories this hour. British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch has been confirmed as among the dead after a super yacht sank off the coast of Sicily this week, that coming from the Italian Coast Guard this morning. The search has resumed for the remaining person who's missing after the luxury yacht sank on Monday. The 5th out of 6 bodies in total so far was recovered from the wreck and brought to shore this morning as rescue efforts are continuing into a 4th day now. The Italian Coast Guard has also confirmed that the 6th and final person yet to be found is a woman. 6 people, including Mike Lynch's 18-year-old daughter Hannah, were unaccounted for after the vessel sank in the early hours of the morning. The government has just released their quarterly migration stats, and legal migration is down, whilst illegal immigration remains steady. And one stat shows that Afghans make up the biggest nationality crossing the English Channel on small boats. There were close to 1,900 asylum applications in the so-called legacy backlog that were still awaiting an initial decision at the end of June this year. Around 76% of withdrawn applications in the year to June were classed as implicit withdrawals, meaning the Home Office chose to withdraw the application rather than the applicant withdrawing it themselves. In other news, hundreds of thousands of teenagers have received their GCSE results today, with a slight drop in the proportion of top grades awarded from last year. The results are similar to last year, with more than a fifth of entries awarded to the top grades, slightly down on 22%, but higher than in 2019 before the COVID pandemic. The approach to grading in England has returned to pre-pandemic levels last year, and this year, exam regulators in Wales and Northern Ireland have also made the transition. And detectives investigating the murder of a parcel delivery driver in Leeds have arrested a 32-year-old man. Police launched a murder investigation yesterday after a delivery driver was involved in a collision during an attempted theft of his van. Officers found the 42-year-old victim was unconscious when they arrived, and he was given emergency treatment by ambulance staff but was pronounced dead at the scene. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Right up next, is it time we normalised age gap love and embraced it as the key to happiness? Bev.
I think so.
We'll debate that next. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. See you soon. Don't go too far.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A pretty unsettled start to the day today. There's some warnings in force through this morning. Rain will spread south and east through the rest of the day, and a further batch of rain is expected tonight. But once the rain does clear parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, it will be still quite windy through much of the day, but it's a generally improving picture across northwestern areas. Still a few showers to come, though, and the cloud and rain will spread into the south and east, but much of the heavier rain will have moved away. So in any sunshine, temperatures still pretty disappointing for the time of year, in the high teens for most areas. But in any sheltered sunshine, we could just about reach 21 or 22 degrees. So fairly fine end to the evening for parts of eastern Scotland, eastern parts of northern England as well. That's where we'll see the best of the sunshine this evening. Temperatures around 17 degrees to end the day. Across the west, though, still some showers moving in where we're exposed to the breeze, temperatures in the lower teens. Clouds already building across Northern Ireland and parts of Wales by the end of this evening, ahead of the next weather front due overnight. But for many areas of England and Wales, it should be a dry and fine evening away from the far southeast. As I said, it's going to turn more unsettled overnight tonight. An area of low pressure will sweep across the country, bringing a spell of very heavy rain and also some quite strong winds, particularly through Friday morning across northwestern areas. Gales are quite likely. So with lots of cloud and rain around, it's fairly tropical air. Temperatures are going to be milder than average by tomorrow morning. But as I said, it's going to be a wet start to the day, potentially some localised flooding issues. But that rain will sweep away quite quickly through Friday morning. Once it does clear, it will bring, there will be a much drier and finer picture for the rest of Friday. Still a few showers, particularly across north and eastern areas of Scotland, as well as parts of Northern Ireland. But in any sunshine, 22 or 23 degrees, but still quite breezy through the rest of Friday. Stay tuned and I'll see you later.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for a Thursday morning. In Kent, the coastbound M20, Operation Brock in place from Junction 8 for Leeds Castle and the Maidstone services to Junction 9 at Ashford. In South Yorkshire, the southbound M1, a lane closed due to a broken down vehicle. Junction 33 for Catcliffe, Sheffield and Rotherham to Junction 32 for the M18 interchange. In Buckinghamshire, the southbound M1, the lane blocked on the slip road to the Newport Pagnell services due to a broken down car. And also as well at the moment in Surrey, the southbound M23, one lane closed due to a broken down vehicle. That's going to affect you from Junction 8 for the M25 to Junction 9 for Gatwick Airport. And in Essex, the clockwise M25, one lane is closed due to emergency repairs following an earlier car fire. That's going to affect you just after Junction 27 for the M11, of course. So just be aware of that this morning. That could slow you down, cause some added time to your journey. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Very good morning, it's 10:38. This is Britain's Newsroom with Bev and Dawn this morning.
Now, ladies, do you prefer dating younger men? A top relationship expert has said that middle-aged women much prefer dating men in their 20s and 30s. So, what do you make of this one, Bev?
There's certainly a trend, isn't there, at the moment? I mean, you've got, I think, Kate Beckinsale is in this, Liz Hurley, Madonna me.
Yeah, well, that's why I said, what do you make of this, Bev? And I'm clearly not. Good morning, darling, if you're watching and you're in your Zimmer frame. Yes, I've got an older model.
Well, here to discuss this is relationship coach Jo Hemmings and the author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton. Good morning to you both, ladies. Christine, what's the age gap with you and your other half? Because, of course, you're a famous couple in the limelight. How old is Neil, if you don't mind me asking?
Not at all. We're a few months apart. His birthday is March and mine is November. So he was 75 in March and I'm 75 in November. And we met when we were 18 and we're still blissfully happy.
And I'm guessing,
no problems there.
I'm guessing you might say that age is just a number and you are as old as you feel in your heart.
Yes, of course, age is just a number, and anybody, as far as I'm concerned, is free to date, marry, divorce, whatever, whoever they like. It's not my affair. As long as they don't interfere with me and hurt dumb animals, that's fine. But I think people should be aware. And you listed, by the way, some very successful women, and the attractions for a young man of an older, richer, more powerful, successful, experienced women are very, very obvious. You know, you listed a lot of them, and there's people like Cher, for example. And Joan Collins is perhaps one of the most famous. I mean, Joan is 91 and she's married to Percy and has been for about 20 years. There's a 30-year age gap and they are blissfully happy. And my own grandfather, turning the sexes round, as it were, when he was 72, he married a lady of 27. The palindrome of their names hit the newspapers, and of course she became his carer. They were perfectly happy. So it's entirely up to you, girls, what you want to do. All I would say is, we had a friend staying recently she's about 60, and her current date is at least in his late 30s, and it was fine, and his attractions were obvious. You know, he was young, he was fit, he was energetic, obviously. But when it came to sort of conversation and discussions and talk, he was out of his depth and it was obvious. But she's having a fling, she's having a wonderful time. But the statistics show that long-term relationships, when the age discrepancy is huge, do not succeed. And as you get older, what we love, to be honest, is growing old together and sharing the same nightmares of old age, whether it's arthritis or less energy or whatever. And it's just joyous that we're doing it together, but you know, each to their own.
So, Jo, why does this survey say that the key to happiness is a younger man?
Well, personally, let me say how fabulous Christine looks. You look amazing. And it's wonderful she's had such a long-term marriage. But there are plenty of women in midlife who have perhaps had messy divorces, their children have grown up and flown the nest. You know, their agenda is not settling down again. Their agenda is freedom, having a bit of fun, enjoying the company. We're talking about dating younger partners here. We're not talking about marrying them. We are talking about the hedonistic, pleasurable joy of being with a younger man. And look, I think men, often when they sort of hit the 50 mark, they kind of slow down a bit. They don't look after themselves so much. Maybe they do want to settle down and have a woman looking after them. You know, whereas the woman wants, look, this is my freedom back. Younger guys are kind of hot. They're probably better, at least more energetic in bed. Women are looking more and more fabulous as they get older. You know, good luck to them. I think this is a wonderful thing for women in their midlife to be doing, to be dating younger partners. As long as nobody gets hurt, you're all on the same page. No one's looking for a long-term permanent relationship. It's absolutely wonderful. I can't see how anybody could not celebrate that.
We were used to, traditionally, it was entirely normal for an older man to be with a much younger woman. This for me is why I think this social change is so significant. I was also used to be quite sniffy about age gap relationships. Oh, that's not going to work, is it? You know, regardless of which direction it was. And then I met someone who's 14 years younger than me, and I've had to completely revise. Oh, thank you very much for putting that picture up. I've had to completely revise how I feel about that. I had such a stereotype in my head, but I think a lot of it is about how old you feel. I'm a bit young at heart, and he's quite an old soul. And in many ways, I suppose, you know, what you need in like exactly what you said, Joe, in sort of midlife is completely different. And I want someone who can listen to me banging on all day, who can actually be supportive, and you have that amazing connection with communication, actually, Christine, because that's, I'm sure, what you would say about you and Neil is that you're really good at talking to each other and listening to each other. And I suppose in many ways these relationships can be like that.
Well, to be perfectly honest, the great joy of a good relationship is you don't have to talk. You just are. What you say doesn't really matter. But I mean, I think you're quite right. As I said earlier, I quite agree that there are a lot of midlife women who look absolutely fabulous, and age is just a number. And nowadays, there are lots of 40-something, 50-something, 60-something women who look amazing, and they want something different out of life. All I am cautioning is that if you want a long-term relationship, you are more likely to have that with somebody a similar age. And I think one has to differentiate between, for example, one of the great examples is Brigitte and Emmanuel Macron. There's 25 years apart. He fell in love with her when she was his teacher, for heaven's sake. And that has proved to be an amazing love match. On the other hand, you get the Mrs. Robinson stereotype in The Graduate, or you get the Shirley Valentine stereotype. And no woman wants to be thought of like that. But things have changed. And if you just want a lot of fun, then go for a younger man, probably, yes, but don't expect that to last forever. And you don't want to, it can look rather creepy. It can look rather creepy. And look, we all think it's a bit creepy when Rupert Murdoch is poring over a much younger woman, and it can look creepy in reverse. So just be careful, girls, be careful. Keep your dignity.
She's like the ghost of Christmas future. Christine Hamilton, the relationship future. All right, Christine, I was feeling OK until now. I'm a bit depressed.
Joe, just very quickly, we are running out of time here very quickly. But so what we're talking here, basically, is you seem to be implying that a younger man will keep you happy if you're looking for a more physical relationship. But Christine saying that if you are a similar age, you've got companionship and you've got friendship, and that is probably the secret to a lasting relationship.
So I still think a 14, 15-year-old age gap these days, look, it opens your mind, their mind. I do think in terms of communication, which I think is critical in any relationship. I don't want a relationship where I can't talk, but I would like a relationship where I get a bit of physical pleasure and conversation. So I think the world is changing. I think we can probably deal with not ridiculous age gaps, 50, 60 years, obviously, that's always slightly strange. But no, up to 20 years, absolutely go for it, girls.
OK, brilliant. Thank you both
ladies.
so much. Relationships coach Joe Hemmings and the legendary Christine Hamilton there.
Indeed. OK, still to come, we'll have the latest on Lecanem. It's being held as the Alzheimer's wonder drug. And this is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News. We'll see you very soon.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Prince Harry says...
Yes. AI is scary. And I think a lot of people are scared and uncertain. And I think one of the solutions to that is education and awareness, because it's becoming harder and harder to stem the flow from the source. And therefore, really, it comes down to all of us to be able to spot the true from the fake.
Well, that was a whole load of nothing, wasn't it?
Wisdom.
Yes, we're going to get the thoughts now of former royal correspondent at The Sun, Charles Ray.
Well, I have to say, I actually agree with Harry and anyone else who says that we have to be cautious about things that appear on social media.
Disinformation and fake news is a controversial topic because who is the ultimate arbiter of truth and fact?
So do you trust Harry to determine?
Well, I don't trust Harry to determine that, no.
They never actually say what they want, though, in terms of social media and things. I mean, do they actually have an idea of what the online media landscape should look like? I mean, there's clearly a veiled attack on Elon Musk and the like, but do they just want anything nasty off there? Do they just want things that, you know, are then proven to be untrue at some point off there? You know, it's easy to stand and say, I want the online world to be safer and it to be less nasty and for there to be less untruths on there. Yeah. It's much more difficult, as we found out in this country and every other country, to actually work out what the policy looks like.
You're absolutely right, Emily, that it's all very well everybody jumping on the bandwagon and saying, oh, we've got to clamp down on social media. Like, I'm suggesting that as well. But, you know, they haven't come up with any solution to it, any program to make it safer and healthier for people to use.
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, it's 10:50. This is Britain's Newsroom with Bev and Dawn on GB News, on your radio, of course, on your TV and online. And just to say, it's GCSE results day. I've just seen a tweet from one of my heroes, Catherine Burble-Singh, the headmistress of the Michaela Academy School in Wembley. It's a school that is incredibly diverse. It does not have, well, as we were talking before, it's not mainly a middle-class population in that school. These are working-class kids, tough backgrounds, some of them, and she's just announced that she said, I didn't think such a statistic was possible. Over 50% of all their GCSE grades were 9s. Well done.
Congratulations to her, and congratulations to everybody out there. And it's not the end of the world if you don't get your grades, by the way. Now, let's hear from the Education Minister, Catherine McKinnell.
Government, we are absolutely committed to ensuring every young person gets the opportunities, no matter where they live, no matter the background they come from. And we know that is a big task, but it's one that we are committed to delivering on. We've seen the results today and the results last week, and they are not spread evenly across the country. But I think we have to praise this cohort of young people who have overcome enormous challenges over the last journey that they've been on in their secondary education, and really recognise the achievements of both them and the teachers and schools that have supported them through it.
Does not wind me up when MPs are going on about how these kids have overcome all of these challenges, that Labour were fighting for more school closures.
Exactly that,
Let's go to GB News East Midlands reporter Will Hollis, who is at the Heenagate Spencer Academy in Derbyshire. Will.
Good morning. Yes, it's a very different room now compared to what it was like just an hour ago. Hundreds of students coming in here, some of them getting out of bed early today to collect those GCSE results, something they've been working on, if not just for a couple of years, certainly for most of their lives. And the people who have been guiding them through that, one of them is Richard, who's the assistant principal here at Heenagate. Good morning. What's it been like this morning and how have your students done?
Well, I think you've seen, and many of your viewers have seen, if they've been tuning in throughout the morning, it's been very busy, lots of smiling faces, huge positivity, but as you've just described, it's a culmination of sort of 5 years hard work, so a huge range of emotions, and I'm sure a lot of relief from many of our students given the results they've achieved.
This is GCSE results day. What have those grades been like here in Derbyshire?
Yeah, really positive for us as a school. Ultimately, it's about students being able to go on to their Plan A destinations, and the vast majority of our young people have. I'm sure it's becoming clearer in terms of the national picture, and as a school and a leadership team will spend a bit of time sort of digesting those results in the coming days and be able to sort of see how we fit into that picture. But from an initial indication, yeah, we're really pleased overall with the outcomes we've achieved and the destinations our young people are going on to.
The school here has a sixth form as well, but what other options are there that some of your students are taking, as well as staying on for year 12 and 13?
Yeah, so the vast majority of students stay on for post-16, that's about 50% or so. And then the other major options are the local FE colleges and also apprenticeships, and we've seen a growing number of students kind of seeking out those apprenticeships to kind of balance that paid work alongside education and kind of learning on the job, which for many students is absolutely the right approach.
Richard, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. While the students have gone, the job continues here at Henegate Spencer Academy as many people figure out where they're going to go next because they've got better results or maybe not done quite as well as they hoped.
Brilliant, thank you very much. That's Will Hollis there on the GCSE results. Right, up next, the latest on those breaking migration stats. Has Rishi Sunak really missed out on a big win here? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News, the People's Channel. But here is Annie with your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A pretty unsettled start to the day today. There's some warnings in force through this morning. Rain will spread south and east through the rest of the day. And a further batch of rain is expected tonight. But once the rain does clear parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, it will be still quite windy through much of the day. But it's a generally improving picture across northwestern areas. Still a few showers to come, though. And the cloud and rain will spread into the south and east. But much of the heavier rain will have moved away. So in any sunshine, temperatures still pretty disappointing for the time of year in the high teens for most areas. Been any sheltered sunshine, we could just about reach 21 or 22 degrees. So fairly fine end to the evening for parts of eastern Scotland, eastern parts of northern England as well. That's where we'll see the best of the sunshine this evening. Temperatures around 17 degrees to end the day. Across the west, though, still some showers moving in where we're exposed to the breeze, temperatures in the lower teens. Clouds already building across Northern Ireland and parts of Wales by the end of this evening ahead of the next weather front due overnight. But for many areas of England and Wales, it should be a dry and fine evening away from the far southeast. As I said, it's going to turn more unsettled overnight tonight. An area of low pressure will sweep across the country, bringing a spell of very heavy rain and also some quite strong winds, particularly through Friday morning across northwestern areas. Gales are quite likely. So with lots of cloud and rain around, it's fairly tropical air. Temperatures are going to be milder than average by tomorrow morning. But as I said, it's going to be a wet start to the day, potentially some localised flooding issues. But that rain will sweep away quite quickly through Friday morning. Once it does clear, it will bring there will be a much drier and finer picture for the rest of Friday. Still a few showers, particularly across north and eastern areas of Scotland, as well as parts of Northern Ireland. But in any sunshine, 22 or 23 degrees, but still quite breezy through the rest of Friday. Stay tuned and I'll see you later.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British giveaway, an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm John from sunny North Yorkshire, and I've just won £20,000 in the GB News Great British giveaway. It didn't cost much to enter, but of course if you're not in, you can't win. And here I am, having won £20,000, and that's tax-free, so I'm rather pleased I did it.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
When it's 11 o'clock on Thursday, the 22nd of August, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Bev Turner, and Dawn Neeson, in for Andrew Pearce.
Indeedy. The government has released their migration stats. Legal migration is down and illegal migration remains steady. Ray Edison has more on this.
With legal immigration down, but illegal migration remaining steady. I'll be getting the latest from Clacton, Nigel Farage's constituency.
And in Sicily, 5 bodies have now been recovered. Tech tycoon Mike Lynch's body has been brought to the shore after the sunken yacht incident in Sicily. The search continues for his 18-year-old daughter, Hannah.
Horrific. And is Labour declaring the war on the motorist? The Transport Secretary has given the green light for more low-traffic neighbourhoods and 20-mile-an-hour zones across Britain.
And it's GCSE results day. Top grades have fallen across Britain, whilst the gap narrows between students in London and North East of England.
And Alzheimer's wonder drug, lecanemab, is being described as the beginning of the end of the disease and is set to be approved for use in Britain. More details on that amazing story soon. But this isn't about what we think, is it, Bev? Despite what we think.
When Andrew Pearce is there, it's rather about what you think.
He's not here to defend himself, though. This is about you, and we'd love to hear your views, so keep them coming in. It's really simple. Visit gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get the news headlines from Tatiana.
Dawn, Bev, thank you very much. The top stories. British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch has been confirmed as among the dead after a super yacht sank off the coast of Sicily this week. That coming from the Italian Coast Guard this morning. The search has resumed for the remaining person missing after the luxury yacht sank on Monday. The 5th out of 6 bodies in total was recovered from the wreck and brought to shore this morning as rescue efforts are continuing into a 4th day now. The Italian Coast Guard has confirmed that the 6th and final person yet to be found is a woman. 6 people, including Mike Lynch's 18-year-old daughter Hannah, were unaccounted for after the vessel sank in the early hours of the morning. The identities of the other recovered bodies have reportedly been confirmed this morning by authorities. The government has released their quarterly migration stats. Legal migration is down, whilst illegal immigration remains steady. One figure shows Afghans make up the biggest nationality crossing the English Channel on small boats. There were close to 1,900 asylum applications in the so-called legacy backlog that were still awaiting an initial decision at the end of June this year. Around 76% of withdrawn applications in the year to June were classed as implicit withdrawals, meaning the Home Office chose to withdraw the application rather than the applicant withdrawing it themselves. Hundreds of thousands of teenagers have received their GCSE results, with a slight drop in the proportion of top grades awarded from last year. More than a fifth of entries were awarded the top grade, slightly down on the 22% last year, but higher than in 2019 before the pandemic. The approach to grading in England returned to pre-pandemic levels last year, and this year exam regulators in Wales and Northern Ireland have also made the same transition. Detectives investigating the murder of a parcel delivery driver in Leeds have arrested a 32-year-old man. Police launched a murder investigation after the driver was involved in a collision during an attempted theft of his van. Officers found the 42-year-old victim was unconscious when they arrived, and he was given emergency treatment by ambulance staff, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. In other news, concerns about children being physically punished have more than tripled in a year, according to the NSPCC. The charity said its helpline had heard about children being slapped, hit and shaken as punishment. It's urging the government to close the legal defence of reasonable chastisement in England. It said contacts where physical punishment was mentioned had increased from 447 in the 12 months to March last year to almost 1,500 in the year to March this year. Now, an audit has found a number of security failings at a jail after a prisoner allegedly escaped, according to a new report. HMP Wandsworth Independent Monitoring Board said the audit identified 81 points of failure and resulted in long overdue upgrades being made to CCTV cameras, which hadn't worked for over a year. Daniel Khalif is accused of fleeing custody in September last year while being held on remand over spy charges. He allegedly strapped himself underneath a food delivery lorry and was arrested a few days later. The former soldier denies all charges against him and is due to stand trial in October. Ukraine has attacked Moscow with at least 11 drones in what Russian officials called one of the biggest drone strikes on the capital since the war began in February 2 years ago. Russia's defence ministry said its air defences destroyed a total of 45 drones over Russian territory. The war escalated on the 6th of August when Ukraine sent thousands of soldiers into Russia's western Kursk region. US President Joe Biden spoke with his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu last night about the ceasefire and hostage release deal and diplomatic efforts to de-escalate regional tensions. The White House has said that Biden stressed to Netanyahu the urgency of bringing the ceasefire and hostage deal to a closure. They also reportedly discussed the upcoming talks in Cairo in order to remove any remaining obstacles. Their call followed US Secretary of State Antony Blinken's trip to the Middle East that ended on Tuesday without an agreement between Israel and Hamas militants on a truce in the Palestinian enclave. Negotiators who have struggled for months to conclude a ceasefire deal plan to meet in Egypt in the coming days. And a dozen magnificent oaks have been chosen for the shortlist for this year's Tree of the Year contest, with the public now able to vote for their favourite. A tree that sheltered 19th century children's tea parties, the UK's widest oak, and one which is shaped like an elephant are among those selected for the public to vote in the annual competition. Some of the oaks are over 1,000 years old. And according to the charity Woodland Trust, oaks can live more than 1,500 years and support 2,300 different species of wildlife. And the UK has more ancient oaks than the rest of Western Europe combined. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Tatiana, and welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the UK on GB News with me, Dawn Neeson, in for Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Very good morning. So, you've been getting in touch at home. Padraig has said everybody knows that the figures can be manipulated to say whatever you want them to say. Does this government think the population is so gullible? Well, these figures, Padraig, are basically for up to June 2024 for the last 12 months. This is immigration, legal and illegal migration, asylum seekers, refugees. So I don't think these are necessarily manipulated in the way. What will be interesting to see is how Labour managed to spin this story to somehow take credit for it.
Yeah, as most of these schemes were set up by the Conservative government previously. But also on the love-gut relationship story, a lot of you have been getting in touch with some lovely stories. Paul says, my girlfriend is 28 and I'm 63. She smiles every day, as do I, as we are together for 5 years, and it's the best relationship I've ever had. That's lovely.
That is very nice.
I like a good love story.
And Aaron says love and attraction comes in many forms and many styles, but happiness comes to all in the right connection, and all who complain about the age gaps have given up on freedom. Many men or women do not feel their age and for that reason find a younger person attractive and sexy. And then he says, Bev, you, Dawn and Carol Malone are extremely attractive and I'm only a recycled teenager.
Bless. Oh, thank you very much. Do keep them coming in, won't you? Especially
more
ones like that. Yes, absolutely.
And here we go. What else have we been saying? We were talking about the fact that we're in Clacton this morning, looking at the immigration figures. Andy's saying, why are you in Clacton when it comes to immigration? But of course, and he says, I thought it was Labour and Starmer you should be chasing, but of course, no Labour MP will talk to GB News. I think it can be confirmed that Starmer and Rachel Reeves are in hiding. Not necessarily true that they won't talk to us, but obviously Clacton is the home of Nigel Farage in terms of his constituency. We know that a lot of people voted for reform because they have strong opinions on this, and similarly voted for Brexit because they had strong opinions on wanting to reduce the amount of legal migration and possibly illegal, but I think the legal migration figure is always much more interesting and much more meaningful, actually, in terms of the effect that it has on whether you can see a GP or get a house or you feel the road's too busy, etc. Those are the big figures.
Yeah, no, it is, and we'd be very interested to see what the government say. Now, talking of them, the government has released their quarterly migration figures. Legal migration is down, whilst the illegal migration remains steady. So, joining us now is a GB News reporter, Ray Addison, who is, as we've just been discussing, in Clacton for us. Ray, how have these figures gone down there?
Well, a little bit too early to say, really. Although legal immigration does appear to be trending down, people here in Clacton saying it's just too early to say what kind of impact a Labour government will have on overall migration, and then subsequently the impact that that will have on communities like this one here in Clacton. In fact, I'm joined now by Jason Smedley. He's the owner of the Royal Hotel, where we're standing right now. Jason, what's your reaction to these numbers?
Hard to say, very early days yet. We haven't seen a great change as yet as what was promised, so we've just got to take the numbers for face value for this month and just follow them as each month goes by to see if they're actually true to the word of what's actually going to happen. What's been some of your biggest concerns? Obviously you employ around 30 staff here in Clacton. People rely on you for their livelihoods. What sort of stories are you hearing from your employees about how immigration's impacting on their lives? For the jobs, not so much. We've never had an issue here with that side of things, but what we are finding is there's an overspill from London post-pandemic that's created a bit more of a bubble burst for housing and infrastructure here. The infrastructure here is struggling to cope. A lot of my staff are younger people that won't get on the housing ladder. And one of my staff has 2 young children, and she's suffering with mould in her place, and she can't get another place because there's nowhere for her to go. Another couple have had issues with wisdom teeth and dentists, and you cannot get an appointment at the dentist. So indirectly, we're seeing the overspill that's suffering our little town here. So on the one hand, you've got concerns that immigration has caused, delays and sort of backlogs to health services and housing and so on. So how do you respond when we hear that health and care visas are down? Assume that will also have an impact if we're not bringing healthcare workers over here to serve people like your employee. We have no issues finding work here. Putting advert out and we have 10 to 15 applicants. We don't struggle with employees. We've got a good young team here that we've grown, and they've worked their way through the ranks. So we've never had an issue with employment. There is enough jobs here for everyone.
Jason Smedley, owner of the Royal Hotel, thank you so much for joining us. Short and sweet, I am afraid, but we'll be chatting to more people here in Clacton throughout the day, so stay tuned for that.
Thank you very much, Ray. We move now on to human rights lawyer Shahab Khan joins us too. Shahab, can you just give us your immediate reaction to these immigration figures? We are yet to hear from the government about what they're saying about them. What do you make of them?
Hi. So I think, firstly, I do have to say, I think some of the people already alluded to that. I think it is pretty meaningless, some of these figures, in the grand scheme of things. Just generally considering, firstly, they're just a snapshot of what the situation was like in June, as all of these figures are. So many months later, when there's so many changes in the country anyway, so many changes around the world, I'm not sure how important it is to be analysing each of these figures anyway. But looking at this, of course, like you said, legal migration is down. So again, so many people, that was a huge concern of theirs. And then even irregular migration is down slightly as well. But yes, fine, if that's we're describing as being steady, then that's the situation. But I think but I think each of these things, we can see why it was. And many of these things many of the figures, the trends are as were predicted. So obviously, for instance, like the asylum backlog, we know Rishi Sunak, for instance, pledged to clear the backlog by the start of this year, which obviously, we all know what happened there. It was quite embarrassing for the Tories at the time. But obviously, those are figures we're seeing. There was a huge backlog. Suddenly, by January, it goes down, and then it starts creeping up again. Because like someone said just now, the government just withdrew so many of the applications themselves. And all those people are now back in the system saying, we want our claims to be decided. So I think that is the pattern, particularly considering it was an election year and an election that focused so much on immigration. I think we can see now how that translated into the figures.
Well, can I go on? Sorry, I just wanted to push back a little bit, Shoaib, on the idea that these aren't relevant figures, because a lot of our viewers and listeners would feel these are very, very relevant. This is 12 months up until June of this year. It isn't just a snapshot. It will tell a direction of travel, and admittedly that is under a previous administration. Let's see what Labour do now. But Rishi Sunak, in terms of bringing down what you call irregular migration, some people would call illegal migration, in terms of bringing down immigration and particularly the backlog, he could claim some success there, couldn't he? To take that figure of legacy asylum backlog from 98,000, so that was anybody waiting more than 2 years, to 1,900. That feels like a win. Tell us why you think it might not be so much of a victory.
Obviously, any backlog, is a disaster, is negative, whatever you think of immigration or asylum seekers generally. So, of course, we want to have low figures. We want to have less people waiting in limbo for months and years. So, of course, but firstly, because one of the reasons I said they were so desperate to meet that pledge, that they just got rid of applications. And what that meant was implicit withdrawals, which basically means someone didn't answer the Home Office phone call, someone missed an appointment, someone didn't attend the interview, and the Home Office was just finding excuses to get rid of these claims. And all of those people are now back, and the government has now announced that those claims will now be looked at. So all those people, just to try to bring the figure as low as possible that the Tories got rid of, those people are now back in the asylum system. And we can see that reflected in the figures here as well, when we look at the backlog. Again, looking at the backlog about like you were saying, the legacy backlog, which is what they pledged. So anyone waiting, they said, I think it was, these figures talk about people who waited more than 6 months. So, of course, if by January we had got rid of all the asylum claims, then all those people came back in February, March and April, then obviously, there's going to be no claims pending for 6 months, because all those claims have now been registered again in February, March or April. And that's how the Tories got the backlog down, and which I think, it was dishonest, it was disingenuous, but I think it actually cost us much, much more.
Sure, but just quickly, we're running out of time, unfortunately. A lot of charities that support migrants, in particular the backlog, are warning that Labour's approach is too similar to the Conservative approach and risks fuelling that far right. What do you say to that?
I think that's true. Especially as we saw the announcement yesterday with Yvette Cooper's announcement. So, I mean, I think in terms of the policies, I'm not too sure. Obviously, they got rid of the disastrous Rwanda scheme that cost them hundreds of millions. And like people say, we sent more home secretaries there than immigrants. So obviously, some of those things we can see positive steps. But I think yesterday when she announced suddenly, I don't know where she got the figure from, we will deport whatever it is, 15,000 people in 6 months. Where is that random figure coming from? What are you saying? Why is it all about targets? Why can't we set up a system first, make it fair, make it reasonable, take your time, and then let's see how many we can fairly deport. And I mean, we know previous Home Secretaries, Theresa May, Amber Rudd, I think, probably had to resign because of immigration targets and so on. So we know, but I don't understand why these governments are so obsessed with targets and numbers. Of course, numbers is what people need to see, but take your time, come up with a viable solution. Don't say in 6 months, yes, we've got rid of 15,000 people, and then, oh, by the way, 60,000 more actually arrived. So, I mean, the point is, what is the end game here? What is your goal? And I think you're right. I mean, that is what Labour is doing. It's all about targets. It's all about numbers. Whereas I think they have a chance now. Just take your time, come up with a long-term solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Human rights lawyer Shoaib Khan, I think we'd all agree on that. Come to the right decision for the country and take your time with that decisions. Yeah, interesting. Right, moving on. Health or vanity? The Royal Society of Medicine is embracing tweakments and adding aesthetic medicine to its curriculum. So they'll be concerned about issues such as Botox and fillers and various cosmetic procedures. The Royal College of Medicine having its own board to assess this. Is that what they should be doing? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Football and gambling can go hand in hand and cause long-term problems. New figures show that young adults aged between 16 and 24 who have bet over the last year are more likely to report mental health issues compared to those in older age groups.
And joining us now to discuss this is Matt Burgess, who is a former gambling addict and now helps those to deal with their own gambling issues.
Yeah, I think gambling is one of those things that is so accessible now. Everyone's got a kind of mobile phone in their pocket, walk around with a kind of 24-hour casino, if you like. So I think it's really important that people realise that we have to sort of recognise that that is a month of quite condensed gambling, and we don't want people to sort of carry that on into their everyday life, because that's when it can become really risky and it can become addictive.
I had no idea, though, that it was linked to first-time gambling. For the first time, people might be able to pick up and have a go. And then it doesn't end there. It goes on, because by then you've got the bug. Is that how it works?
You've got to remember, for things like the Euros, the World Cup, so you get a lot more people watching football and therefore potentially betting on football.
May I ask you about how severe your own gambling addiction got?
Well, look, I think there was a couple of touch points for me where I realised that things were getting out of hand. There were some times at university where, I kind of thought, I'm definitely doing this a bit too much, but, kind of thought maybe it would move on once I left, but it didn't. It did follow me. And then, I got to points where I was at my worst gambling 16, 17 hours a day. I was spending huge amounts of money. It can spiral out of control very, very quickly. And that was the important thing that we want to highlight is, what can start as fun can become very, very dangerous in a sense.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello
and welcome back. It's 11:22 nearly, and we are live across the nation. It's GB News. I'm Shiz Bev, I'm Dawn, and joining us now, Carol Malone and Jonathan List, to go through those newspapers for you.
Right, what should we start with?
We're
What do you want to
start with? A
Carol?
Geordie story, aren't
Yeah,
we?
this is great.
a story that it emerged this week, and it was about Newcastle University have sent a whole list of guidelines out to students saying they can't call women pet. And they can't call them ladies or girls, but it's the pet thing that annoys me, because I am a Geordie, I'm from Newcastle.
Really?
You hide it so well, Carol. Those
I had no idea,
elocution lessons.
Yeah, so, sorry, I thought I did. I don't want to hide the fact I'm Geordie, but anyway, so... Pet is used as a term of endearment. It's never used badly. Yeah. It's always spoken in soft terms, and it means dear or my love. Yeah. It's stuff like that. And this is Newcastle University. This is some of the bosses there. Now, I bet none of them are Geordies. And what they're doing is they're trying to homogenise our language. They're taking out our vernacular, the words that we have grown up with and loved. And I said to somebody yesterday, there's a word for these people who do that. It's a Geordie word, so I can say it. And it's doilem. And it means idiots. Leave our language alone. It's beautiful, it's warm, it's not patronising. But what it's really, the insidious message is they're trying to take out the gender. Yeah. So they don't want women called pet or girls or ladies.
Oh, you can call me whatever you want, Jonathan. Right, OK, I always call everyone sweetheart, mostly because I forget their names.
Dawn, you know me, I call people sweetheart. Babe, if I know them, if I know they're not going to be offended by it, they're friends. But also, gay people have their own vernacular, and women, my female friends, call everyone babe as well. So that is interesting. It's kind of like the young people do have, or younger people, do have like a different ways of kind of communicating with each other. What I would say to Carol about this is that I think that things like regional variety is brilliant. It's one of the great strengths of our language, and diversity would be really a shame if we did homogenise the language. I suppose the only thing with something like pet is it being used in a way that it's clear that it's not meant in an offensive way. It's clearly meant as a term of endearment. I'm literally just saying, if it's new, and also in a non-gendered way, because we do have ways of interacting with male strangers that we don't have for female strangers. Like when someone walked past me the other day, I said, sorry, mate. I was thinking, that's interesting because... And a woman can say that as well. But what would he have said if I'd been a woman? That's because you kind of think, what you... Because then you'd have... No, because I've never... It's very rare that someone would call a female stranger mate.
No, I get called mate, but cab drivers call me mate. They say, thanks, mate.
Yeah, it's much rarer to call woman, a female stranger, mate, because often the words used for women are words that are sort of considered more patronising, like love or doll, whatever.
Jonathan, who don't understand the Geordie vernacular. They don't understand how and when it's used. It's them deciding what the new rules are. Well, no, butt out of it. You know, you go to all parts of the country. You said a word yesterday when this story broke, and I don't even know if we can say it on air, but it's a word that they use in Lancashire.
It's the other word that, so the word that isn't hen but begins with C.
Yes, and that has now become an insulting word to women.
Begins with
like a peacock without the P.
C, yes, peacock without the P.
There's the term of endearment in Lancashire, and like people, you say duck. In other parts of the country, people say duck. And all these things, they don't seem to be gendered. I'm obviously not from those parts of the country. They don't seem to be gendered, and they're a way, the term endearment that you can use with men and women, and also with strangers.
I think you did make a valid point there. I agree with pet. I can't think of anything, but there are some contexts in the way a word is used, like darling. I used to have a boss who, if he said the word right, darling, in that tone of voice, you knew that you were in trouble. So there are some words, there are some.
But this is the thing, human beings are pretty good at working out context. Yes. Like, call me old-fashioned, but we can all generally work out the difference between saying, all right, pet, and saying, all right, pet, and this is what worries me when this is in an academic establishment, because it's presuming that the next generation don't have that sense of context of language.
People can use your name. They can say, Carol, they're cross. I hear it a lot.
Beverly. When I'm in trouble, I'm a Beverly.
The fun thing about the update of the story is that after the story broke yesterday, and it was in all the papers, some Geordie person went and plastered the university with the word pet, put stickers all over it. I love it, and I'm sure Geordies everywhere will be
Yeah, that was fun. That was funny.
Right, Jonathan, let's go to your story in The Guardian. NSPCC helpline about children triples.
Yeah, so this is a really concerning story, Dawn, about the number of...
It's a really concerning story about snitches, but carry on.
Okay, fine. Are we? This is a really okay. I want to know more about why you said that, because
tell the story first.
Well, the story is that there's been an increase of the number of people phoning up the NSPCC helpline to raise awareness about children that may be at risk of harm. We can all agree on this panel that there are children in this country who are being harmed by the people who are meant to be looking after them.
It's not that, though. It's about people who are chastising their children with physical punishment, either slapping them or hitting them. People are being reported to the NSPCC for doing that.
OK, and we can all agree that there are some cases of hitting that would be classed as assault if they were done to any person, child or adult. And there are also instances of physical punishment that we may all have been subjected to as children that have been accepted historically in this country. The question is whether they should be accepted historically, whether children should have the same rights to bodily integrity as any other human being.
Absolutely not.
And OK, fine. Well, that's a different debate. But people are complaining.
Debate. It's exactly the same debate. It's exactly the same, because, you know, parents are cross, and you're one of them. You're cross that someone tells you that if you give your child a light smack across the legs to maybe stop him or running across the road or hurting themselves, you are actually, quotes, beating your child. We're talking of context before. There's got to be context.
Stopping a child from crossing a road is different from punishing a child for some kind of misdemeanour with undue force. Surely.
I think the rule is you can smack your child in England without leaving a mark. So the idea is that you can give your child, if they're being cheeky or they're being naughty, you can give them a little smack on the bottom when they're young to teach them right from wrong. And this story, I think, is people misunderstanding that you're allowed to do that. You are allowed to do that without somebody ringing the NSPCC and saying, I've just seen a child being abused, because that's not abuse.
But Bev,
and you will never stop the children who are being genuinely physically abused, which is awful. This isn't that.
But Bev, how can you possibly say that there are people being reported who aren't actually using undue force, that aren't crossing the line, because we're not there when these complaints are being made? Are we saying that no complaints should be followed up?
People think
that people shouldn't complain.
You're not allowed to touch your child at all.
To go up 3 times in 12 months, to go up from 400 times to 1,500 times in 12 months tells you that that's not... There aren't 3 times as many children...
It could be an increased awareness.
...being beaten up by their parents, but there are 3 times as many children being reported to authorities, because we've turned into a nation of snitches.
I think that's an important point. It could be an increased awareness, and it also... If it is snitching, why do people feel they should snitch more?
Because it happened during the pandemic and everybody was told, spy on your neighbours. And we've had it just recently with Labour saying about this misogyny law, that it could be that it becomes law for a teacher to report, or for somebody to report a young boy who says something that might be deemed misogynistic. This is the general movement of travel to always looking and telling on your neighbours.
But Bev, we also have, you know, and lockdown, you'll probably agree, will have increased this. There was a great increase in domestic violence during during lockdown. Right, OK, fine, so you can't have it both ways then, because if we're saying that the violence has increased in the last few years...
between head trauma to a child and a smack on the back of the legs.
We don't know what these complaints are about, Bev. We know that there was an increase in... Sorry, Carol. Sorry, I'm getting so flustered. You know, there's an increase in domestic violence. There's increase in domestic violence in the last few years, and you might expect that to kind of coincide with an increase in awareness about that happening and an increase in fear about children's safety. That can only be a good thing if people are genuinely worried about children's safety and they see something that doesn't look right. We've had so many horror stories in the last few months about children who have been killed at home in the place they should have been the safest, and people around them didn't do anything to stop it. So you have to err on the side of caution sometimes.
You shouldn't be routinely smacking your kids as your first line of defence for discipline. You just shouldn't. That's not great parenting. But these figures for me to have tripled in 12 months tells us that there's something. This is about.
However, I do think the important message is, if you do see something and you are concerned, please do report it, because you never know that there might be something going on and it does need reporting. Thank you very much, Carol and Jonathan, for going through the papers for us. Now it's the news headlines with Tatiana.
Dawn, thank you very much and good morning. The top stories this hour. British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch has been confirmed as among the dead after a super yacht sank off the coast of Sicily this week. The search has resumed for the remaining person who's missing after the luxury yacht sank on Monday. The fifth out of 6 bodies in total so far was recovered from the wreck and brought to shore early this morning as rescue efforts are continuing into a 4th day now. The Italian Coast Guard has confirmed that the 6th and final person yet to be found is a woman. 6 people, including Mike's 18-year-old daughter Hannah, were unaccounted for after the vessel sank in the early hours of the morning. The government has released their quarterly migration stats today. Legal migration is down, whilst illegal immigration remains steady. One figure shows Afghans make up the biggest nationality crossing the English Channel on small boats. There were close to 1,900 asylum applications in the so-called legacy backlog that were still awaiting an initial decision at the end of June this year. Around 76% of withdrawn applications in the year to June were classed as implicit withdrawals, meaning the Home Office chose to withdraw the application. Hundreds of thousands of teenagers have received their GCSE results with a slight drop in the proportion of top grades awarded from last year. More than a fifth of entries were awarded the top grades, slightly down on 22% last year, but higher than in 2019 before the COVID pandemic. The approach to grading in England returned to pre-pandemic levels last year, and this year exam regulators in Wales and Northern Ireland have also made that same transition. And detectives investigating the murder of a parcel delivery driver in Leeds have arrested a 32-year-old man. Police launched a murder investigation yesterday after the driver was involved in a collision during an attempted theft of his van. Officers found the 42-year-old victim was unconscious when they arrived, and he was given emergency treatment by ambulance staff but was pronounced dead at the scene. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Up at noon. Good afternoon, Britain, with Emily and Patrick today. Hello both. You all right?
We are all right.
Yes.
Are you all right?
Very good.
Everyone's
Very
all right.
good. Looking forward to it.
We've got a huge amount coming up. Of course, you'll be looking at the immigration stats. We're going to dig through those a little bit further as well. It looks like numbers are down, but only to double 2019 figures.
Yeah.
So what exactly is behind that? James cleverly says it's all about what he did when he was in the job and what will Labour do instead. They've got one idea, though.
Labour, well, they're looking
when it comes to immigration.
Yeah, well, free movement for young people, basically. So the angle for me on this is that Keir Starmer, the master of negotiation, what we saw with the unions, OK, is now off to the European Union to negotiate something about free movement of people. How do we think that's going to go? And actually, is this just paving the way for us to rejoin the European Union? Softly, softly catching
Yeah, you start with the under-30s, giving them an opportunity to work here and work in the European Union. But the problem is, as we saw with freedom of movement when we had it, a lot of Europeans coming here, not so many Brits actually venturing off to the European Union, apart from retirees.
This is the problem. There's a lot of them, and we're only one country, so our youngsters are going there. There's a lot of countries that can come here.
Well,
that's because we can't speak any other languages and everyone else can speak English.
I can ask for the bill.
Yeah.
Well, I actually studied languages. My plan was always to go and work in Brussels, but then I became a bit of a Eurosceptic, so that wasn't going to go very well.
Yes.
We've also got a journalist on who's been in Sicily over the past few days. He says there's lots of unanswered questions, so we're going to go through those with him about this sunken yacht. And the green light to lots of 20-mile-per-hour zones. Good news.
War on the Motorist.
And can you remember your GCSE results, you two?
Yes, I can.
All A stars.
All A stars.
Honestly, why does that not surprise us?
Not the same. 7 A stars, 2 A's and a C.
Oh, still very good, Patrick.
It was all right. It was okay.
What did you get a C in?
That's what everybody always asks. Biology, which I think says a lot. Yeah.
So between you have a clutch of A stars.
We do have a clutch of A stars.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think what's
went to a
interesting-
bit of a grade factory.
Yeah.
As a school.
I think what's interesting, though, is the school that appears to have done the best in the country, pretty much, is that Michaela Academy.
Yes. Yeah, very impressive.
And what is their motto? Let's be really strict.
Yeah.
OK, and hope that it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And shock horror, everybody, it does work.
Yeah.
And you go to the same schools just down the road from it, they do unbelievably worse. Why? Well, because it's just chaos and carnage.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Weak
Yeah.
leadership. And honestly, I said earlier, congratulations to Catherine Boble-Singh and that school because they are amazing.
Very
Why doesn't
tough
everybody?
job being a
and they
teacher.
get such a lot of criticism for the fact that she's old school and she expects high standards in the kids.
And it's a very poor area as well. So
They
she's
sing the
doing a
national
great
anthem
thing.
every morning, I think, as well.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do, yeah. All of that and much more at midday. That's with Patrick and Emily. Don't want to go too far that. Now, coming up next, a good news story about an Alzheimer's wonder drug and how it turns out will not be funded by the NHS. Curious. More of that next. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Don't go too far.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A pretty unsettled start to the day today. There's some warnings in force through this morning. Rain will spread south and east through the rest of the day. And a further batch of rain is expected tonight. But once the rain does clear parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, it will be still quite windy through much of the day, but it's a generally improving picture across northwestern areas. Still a few showers to come, though. And the cloud and rain will spread into the south and east, but much of the heavier rain will have moved away. So in any sunshine, temperatures still pretty disappointing for the time of year in the high teens for most areas. But in any sheltered sunshine, we could just about reach 21 or 22 degrees. So fairly fine end to the evening for parts of eastern Scotland, eastern parts of northern England as well. That's where we'll see the best of the sunshine this evening. Temperatures around 17 degrees to end the day. Across the west, though, still some showers moving in where we're exposed to the breeze, temperatures in the lower teens. Clouds already building across Northern Ireland and parts of Wales by the end of this evening ahead of the next weather front due overnight. But for many areas of England and Wales, it should be a dry and fine evening away from the far southeast. As I said, it's going to turn more unsettled overnight tonight. An area of low pressure will sweep across the country, bringing a spell of very heavy rain and also some quite strong winds, particularly through Friday morning across northwestern areas. Gales are quite likely. So with lots of cloud and rain around, it's fairly tropical air. Temperatures are going to be milder than average by tomorrow morning. But as I said, it's going to be a wet start to the day, potentially some localised flooding issues. But that rain will sweep away quite quickly through Friday morning. Once it does clear, it will bring, there will be a much drier and finer picture for the rest of Friday. Still a few showers, particularly across north and eastern areas of Scotland, as well as parts of Northern Ireland. But in any sunshine, 22 or 23 degrees, but still quite breezy through the rest of Friday. Stay tuned and I'll see you later.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good morning. It's 11:40. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Dawn Neeson, in for Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So a drug found to slow down Alzheimer's has been given the green light for use in the UK. Experts say that the drug lecanemab, which is the first of its kind, has been shown to slow down the disease by almost 30%.
But the health watchdog has said the drug will not be funded by the NHS as it's too expensive. So joining us now is NHS doctor Natalie Rout to explain what is exactly... Natalie, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. So can you explain a little bit, firstly, about what this drug is about and how it works and why, we've heard it before, it's too expensive for the NHS?
Yes, this news is a little bit of a disappointment for the almost 1 million people suffering with Alzheimer's in the UK. So Alzheimer's disease is, as many of you will know, where you suffer with memory loss. And the way it works is that you get something called amyloid plaques building up in the brain. Now, this drug, lecanemab, which is an antibody, acts on sort of stopping those clusters of plaques from forming. So it could slow what we call cognitive decline, where you lose some of that cognition that you're able to do without something like dementia. So it is a major discovery in the medical world. We don't really have anything that works like this drug does for Alzheimer's. And when we found out that it was going to be licensed in the UK, that was a great success. However, it is expensive. So apparently in the USA, it costs about £20,000 per patient per year. And so the NICE, the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence, who look at what the NHS will fund and won't fund, have said that it is too expensive for the potential benefit that it may have to a few of the people suffering with Alzheimer's.
Is this, Natalie, a drug that would prevent the speed with which Alzheimer's can develop in a person, or will it stop you catching it in the first place?
No. It slows the decline. So I believe the data show that it probably slows the disease from progressing by about 4 to 6 months. So that's one of the considerations that these people will have taken into consideration, the rate of decline that it slows.
Natalie, considering the increase we're seeing in these, Alzheimer's, dementia, in these problems, surely it's a false economy. Surely the more we can treat people the earlier, the better, and in the long-term cost effect.
Dawn, I completely agree. It would be so great if we could slow down this progression. I think what we should hang on to is the fact that this is a breakthrough in the medical world, and this doesn't mean that it's the end, that it's not something that might be funded later on down the line if the drug can be tweaked, if we have more data showing that actually it can help more people, if it doesn't have to be given at certain times. There are multiple factors that that NICE will have taken into account when making this decision that it won't be funded. And one of those is a number of staff that are going to be needed to deliver these infusions. So it's a fortnightly treatment, it's 2 weekly. That's quite a lot for staff requirements. You need monitoring, so you'll need brain scans done at regular intervals. So that's, again, costs. And actually, even before starting the drug, you'd need to have certain tests to take place to determine the level of amyloid in the brain. So these are tests that we don't do routinely on people with dementia. So there are lots of people, lots of equipment, lots of centres that would be required to actually roll out this treatment, and that all has to be taken into consideration again. And ultimately, there isn't an endless pot of money in the NHS. We know that the NHS is really struggling right now with costs, and we have to take that into consideration. So it's not an easy decision to be made, and as disappointing as it is, I think that weigh up has to happen.
I think if you have a loved one who has Alzheimer's, you just probably try anything just to prolong their life and their well-being. Would it be available, lecanemab, on private healthcare? If you could afford it, is it the kind of thing you could then go out and seek?
That's what it sounds like, because it sounds like it has been given the go-ahead for private prescriptions, but I don't know what the cost of that will be. I don't know if private healthcare insurance providers will cover the cost, because insurance companies have their own restrictions as well. So it's a little bit unclear at the moment, but there is that potential. I just want to add to that even though you may think that anyone with Alzheimer's is eligible for this, but there are still strict criteria as to who can access this. And at the moment, it appears like it's those people with mild cognitive decline in the early stages of Alzheimer's that are eligible. So those people that already have established Alzheimer's disease probably wouldn't be eligible for it anyway.
Necessarily benefit. OK, thank you so much. GP Dr. Natalie Rout there. If I walked into a GP surgery and I had that lovely smiley face, I would feel very reassured.
She's lovely. You know what, Bev, it must be incredibly frustrating to be in the healthcare profession at the moment and see these drugs that can really help people, especially Alzheimer's, which is awful to lose people to this. And knowing that there is something that can help, but you can't do anything about it.
We are moving towards a two-tier health service. Two-tier care is still living up to that now because we're living more and more in a country where if you can pay for your health care, you're going to be fine. And if you can't, then, frankly, you're not the state's problem. It's really depressing.
Very much so. Right, we move on, though. Up next, the Paralympics kicks off in Paris on Wednesday. But you might be shocked to find out how much it costs for the para-athletes to take part in that. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. We'll see you soon.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Joined now by the founder of Quintet London, Tanta Musulishvili, who channels her experience and fervour for fashion into her innovative brands which produce artworks on silk. You brought in some lovely things which we'll discuss in just a moment. Tell me a little bit about the complexity of printing an artist's idea onto silk. Is that a difficult thing to do?
It's actually very simple because we just simply ask our clients a set of questions to find out what they like, their experiences, their favorite objects or anything they desire. We create out of this information preliminary sketch, show it to clients until it's perfect. We change it according to their needs.
Are you saying that everything that you're doing here is personalised to a client? It's a commission from a client?
Every single piece is totally unique. We make each individual piece for the client taste. So every single piece is totally different. And what is nice, for example, we do like wedding favors, corporate gifts, investors' gifts, and every single time we would match the theme throughout to the actual company theme and so on.
Now here we have a series of little silk ties. Am I right to call them ties?
This one's actually called twillies. Twilly.
Yes. I didn't know the word twilly.
Yes.
These have a name. So this is the name of your client in this case. This one is Amanda, I think.
Exactly. So actually these are our signature design. So if you want to give someone something quickly, but just simply add their names, you can order from our website and you just simply need to insert their name and we can produce it on your favorite color combination. But then obviously our main product is totally unique pieces which are bespoke.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. After the success of the Paris Olympics, we head towards the Paralympics next week.
Now, what the athletes do is, of course, very impressive, but it's also very expensive for those involved.
I'm thrilled, actually. We are joined now by UK's first triple amputee to survive the Afghanistan conflict and Invictus Games athlete Mark Ormrod. Mark, thank you very much for joining us. Good to see you this morning. Mark, the shocking thing about this, I mean, your achievements speak for themselves. You're amazing. How many gold medals exactly have you won? I think it's about 7, is it now?
Only 4.
Only 4, right, OK, well, you'll get only 4, he says, right. Mark, the one shocking thing, we're all looking forward to the Paralympics. It starts on the 28th of August. But the one thing I'm surprised by is just how much it costs athletes like yourself to take part.
Yeah, I mean, living as a triple amputee is expensive in any case. You know, the legs I'm wearing now are in excess of £80,000. An arm can cost anything from maybe 3.5 to 15 or upwards. Specialist equipment like a hand cycle that I have is entry level is about £10,000, and wheelchairs can go anywhere from 8,000 to 30,000. So it's expensive.
Most people get round this because I mean, you know, it's incredibly expensive for most people. I mean, do you get sponsorship? How does it work?
It's a bit of a hybrid. You know, some of the Paralympic athletes, I believe, get a bit of a wage, if you like, and then it's out to sponsorship. And then there are organisations. For myself, being ex-military, you can go to charities like Blesma, and they're the ones that actually bought my bike for me. They'll help fund some of these things. But yeah, I mean, these men and women are incredible. They're not just competing at the highest level as elite athletes. They're mums and dads, they're employees, they're business owners. So they're spinning plates and they're juggling it all to go out there and represent their country to the very best of their abilities.
Mark, you've got a brand, No Limits. You really do represent the idea of No Limits being a triple amputee. When you've faced such a massive challenge in your life as you have, but you've gone forward and made it into something successful, where do you credit that to? What is that? Is that just your innate character and how you were before your accident?
There's a little bit of that. But it's also, you have to make a big mindset shift and go from being a victim to a victor. You know, there are so many opportunities out there. There are so many resources out there. There are so many things that all of us can do, whether disabled or able-bodied now, that maybe weren't available to us pre-internet. I'm also very fortunate to have an incredible support system of family and friends and organizations from the serving and the ex-military community. So you've got to combine all that together and then just have an innate belief in yourself that you can live a life with no limits and do what you want to do.
OK, all right. Thank you so much, Mark, there, who has competed in the Invictus Games and Paralympics and is just reminding us all to watch the Paralympics when it starts later next week.
And it's so unfortunate they don't get funded because it means so much to people to get out there and be able to do something.
Yeah.
Right, well, that's it from us today.
This week, in fact.
I know, yes.
Thank you, Dawn. I've loved having you here.
It's been good fun, absolutely. Now, up next is A Good Afternoon Britain with Patrick and Emily. Don't go too far, but I think before that we have the weather.
Yes, indeed. So, free movement of people for the under-30s. Absolute master negotiator himself, Sir Keir Starmer, is off going to negotiate the European Union. Is he just trying to take us in through the back door? We'll talk about all of that.
We will indeed. And also, we've got a bit of an exclusive for you about the Reform Party. Lots of movements there, perhaps ramping up their campaigning. We'll reveal exactly what they've got on the cards very soon indeed. And also, 20-mile-per-hour zones. Could there be more? The Transport Secretary has apparently given the green light for more of these zones. Is this the start of a new war on the motorist?
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Storm Lillian is going to batter some parts of the UK overnight, bring some very wet and windy weather, particularly to northern parts of England. But through today, we do have a cold front making its way southeastwards, bringing a bit of cloud and a bit of rain for some before it clears away as we go through into this evening. Elsewhere, some bright or sunny spells developing behind this system. Also a scattering of showers, particularly across parts of Northern Ireland, northern and western Scotland, 1 or 2 showers perhaps for western parts of England and Wales as well. Now temperatures are going to be a little bit on the low side, low 20s towards the south, a few degrees lower than this further north, and feeling cooler than this in those strong winds, albeit they are going to ease for a time as we go into the afternoon. Still clinging on to some cloud and a bit of rain across the far southeast as we go through this evening, but that will eventually clear away. A brighter picture across central western parts of southern England and across the Midlands and Wales as well, largely fine and dry with some sunshine here turning cloudier, wetter and windier across Northern Ireland as Storm Lillian starts to make its approach. Meanwhile, it's going to be a showery evening across some parts of northern England and much of Scotland, particularly towards the west. The feature that is then Storm Lillian does make its way in as we go overnight, initially brings some wet weather to Northern Ireland, but then that heavy rain spills in across parts of Scotland, northern England and across Wales as well. And it's the winds that we do need to watch out for. Gusts of around 80 miles per hour, perhaps in some exposed spots, could cause some significant disruption. Because of the wet and windy weather, it is going to be a mild night, if not a bit warm for some of us, some places staying mid to high teens Celsius. But a very unsettled start to the day tomorrow. Watch out for those strong winds, could cause some disruption, particularly on the roads. But the feature does clear away towards the east as we go through the afternoon. Some showers following in behind across northern parts, and these could be a little bit heavy at times, but further south it's looking like it's going to be a largely fine afternoon. See you later. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's